All right, 6:30, so just because we were in executive session prior to this, I'm just going to ask if anybody is recording the meeting, if they can. Nobody else is recording. So agenda item number 2 is to meet with the town moderator and the Lakeville members of the regional school committee to reappoint Robert Marshall Foster as old.
Just Robert Marshall.
I know, I was like, why does it say Foster? I didn't know you barely have another last name. I was just reading it as it.
I haven't.
Must have been Donald Foster from
I
last
do it last year.
I didn't know he did something with your name. To the Old Colony School District member to fill a vacancy in the Old Colony District School Committee. So we have our Lakeville members of the school committee here. We have our town moderator, and we have Bob Marshall's here with us. We received a letter from Bob expressing his interest to continue on the school committee. So I know that I just have some questions for you, Bob, just if you're, I have no problem if you want to do it before or after the appointment, but just about some items on the Old Colony School Committee, just to have a question on it.
I'll do my best.
So,
Go to the podium, please.
Who, me? People have seldom had trouble hearing me.
so I don't know if you guys want to, I know you guys don't really open your meeting because it's a joint appointment with all of us, so you don't really have a quorum. There's no quorum to open.
Oh, you are here.
Yes. Sure.
Yeah, so this would be a reappointment of a position which would expire on May 1st, 2022. So I know I just had a question just on a couple things related to Freetown. So I don't know if you want to talk about it after, or if you want to just talk offline. I'm fine with that. Just while you're
Whatever you want. If you have a question, I'll be happy to give what answers I know. Is it relative to a specific issue related to Freetown, or?
Yeah, I'll just call you after, because this part I turn over to the moderator, so it's my question just for you. I think more so once you're probably, I mean, you're appointed now, but you're here, so I'll just contact you. about
Whatever
that.
you want is fine with me.
Yeah, so I'm turning it over to the moderator for this meeting.
So I called the joint meeting of this school committee and the Board of Selectmen to order. And I understand that our order of business is to reappoint Robert Marshall as a Lakeville member of the Old Colony Regional Vocational and Technical High School Committee, for a term of 3 years ending in 2022. So I'll take nominations from the floor. And a second? Second. Okay, is there any discussion?
Who made the motion? Laura, thank you. And Sherry seconded.
As far as discussion is concerned, I will just say that Bob has served this role before, some years ago, and I'm thrilled to say that this past year.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? We can go to a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Robert Marshall has been unanimously appointed. Is there any other further business? Having no further business, do I hear any objections to adjourn? All right, we're adjourned.
All right, thank you. And Bob, maybe we'll just try to do a separate meeting, maybe bring in the Lakeville members of the regional school committee.
Sure.
Because I think that's probably a good way to approach it, because there's a couple things related to budget, and then also too with the regionalization with Freetown. There was a grant that was issued out there, so we'll kind of get in touch with
With respect to the
you.
regional what with Freetown?
Freetown applied for a grant to study joining,
Oh, okay.
so I don't know where they are with that, and just to have that
As a
conversation.
matter of fact, I had a brief discussion. I was down there today speaking with Aaron, and I had a brief, very brief, less than 2-minute discussion on that issue, and it is still very much up in the air. To my knowledge, I could be wrong, but to my knowledge, Freetown has not made a request to join. There may have been conversations of which I'm unaware, but to my knowledge, they have not made a request. But they may have look for, funding to explore it.
Right.
Are you talking about Freetown looking for grant or
Yeah, no,
funding?
Freetown got approved for a grant to look into joining. And if that is the case, then that becomes more of a regional district issue because the formula that
Oh, yes.
allocates the Chapter 70 money to all of our
Gotcha.
communities.
Well,
will-
there's a whole thing, and I'm sure you don't want to get into a long discussion about it, but there's one of the things that I believe that the NEAS&C committee, who just finished up last week with their every 10-year evaluation, I feel pretty certain, because I was there last week when they sort of debriefed the staff, they mentioned that they feel that the school is outgrowing itself. And so I think there probably will be some search for an opportunity to expand programs and the size of the school, et cetera, et cetera. And when you start talking about the money that Freetown pays in tuition, which is more than what the member towns do, you also have to consider the impact that having them as a member would be, and I'm not advocating one way or the other, but the money that we would get from SBAB in terms of such an expansion, if that is in fact what the member towns decide to do. So it's not just a matter of the tuition, it's also long-term spending for any expansion that might come up.
Yeah, so why don't we, just keep us informed and we can just have a meeting, that will kind of talk about a lot of the issues at Old
Sure.
Colony, just to make sure that we're good.
You let us know.
Okay.
When you'd like to have it before the board, I presume.
Yeah, and I think that as we move, through the budget process too, a couple things just to make sure that we're looking at the Old Colony budget, a little bit closer with some of the items too. I know our hands are a little bit tied, but I just figured that I'd take that extra 10 minutes we had on the agenda and discuss that.
Yeah, one thing about the budget and looking at it more closely, I was very pleased to see a process that took place this year where all of the I say all of the administration, that's probably not quite accurate, but FinCom members and Rita, I believe, were invited to come down to Old Colony for a review of the budget in general and in particular.
Yep.
And they were asked if they had any input. And I attended the first, was unable to attend the second, but it's my understanding that there was no objection to anything in the budget. So,
which is fine. I know we sent Rita, so
Okay.
but we'll have that conversation offline. So
All
I
right.
appreciate it and
All right.
thank you and congratulations, Steve.
Just from the school budget perspective, when you have that conversation about the Old Colony, since
We'll
it
let you
does
guys know,
impact
too.
our budget, if you could just let us know so we could also be in
Yeah,
attendance.
and it wouldn't have necessarily impact your budget this year, but as you look to the formula, as it moves forward, if that is something that happens.
There's
it is-
ongoing concerns and what happens, so.
Yep, perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, agenda item number 3. We are going to meet with the fire chief to discuss the following items. The first one is the update on the ambulance, brush breaker, and ladder truck. Then we have a couple of appointments, one call firefighter Nathan Gagne, and then a determination of the fire chief's disclosure pursuant to Master General Law, Chapter 268A-19, and to discuss the appointments of Aiden O'Brien and Nolan O'Brien as call firefighters. So Chief, you have the floor.
Thank you very much for meeting with me tonight. One of the things is that I wanted to cover, we have some mounting issues with vehicles in the fire department, and I just wanted to make you aware of them, not have you blindsided by any issues or complications resulting from these vehicles being out of service. There's not a surprise with the ambulance too. You're well aware of the crash that took place and why it's out of service, and you are aware of the replacement ambulance that we purchased for $1. I just wanted to provide an update that ambulance is due to return to service the second week of May. Repairs have started. There was a lot of haggling over repair costs, things like that, and I'm glad to say that I wasn't involved in them. And now things are moving forward and they're making repairs. So I wanted to put that out there. As summer approaches.
Can I just ask a question, Mike? How much over the insurance reimbursement are we going to need in this year's budget?
I'm not certain of that number. I haven't been provided with that figure.
Because I'm just thinking for the special town meeting.
We'll have to put them on the year-end transfers.
Right,
Because there's a
on the
number of
special,
different
right.
movements happening in your
So
line
in
item.
addition to the 26,000?
Isn't it just the deductible portion? You're not, the insurance company's paying.
They were issued
Not
us a
going to cover
check.
everything.
They issued us a check for the $26,000.
Right, and that's
And-
gonna change to
Yeah.
46,000, or
Exactly.
whatever it is. We don't pay any.
Yeah, and I had them stipulate the fact that if I cashed that check, it wouldn't tie us into that amount. Like they would,
Right.
if there was additional
Right.
expenses, they would have to come
Just
back
like
with
a
another
car.
check.
But I
Exactly.
I
So-
thought with the stretcher, that's not all going to be covered.
Well, the stretcher, they had recertified, and the insurance company paid for the recertification of the stretcher, so that was not a
Okay,
pocket cost.
all right.
Right, so it's just the deductible, which is not a lot.
1,000.
Yeah.
So, moving on to, if that's okay, any more questions on the ambulance? Moving on to the breaker, Forest Fire 1, as it's designated. We had a pump failure at the scene of a brush fire / shed fire, and when we sent it off for service to determine the cause of the loss in pressure at the fire, they sent a camera into the pump housing and discovered that a brass garden hose nozzle was lodged in the impeller of the fire truck, and due to the age of the vehicle's 22 years old, the pump's 22 years old, the repair parts weren't available. They're no longer being made or for sale. So having those parts fabricated took some time, and we're looking at, they've given me an estimate around $6,000 to $7,000, and we're looking at an in-service date of around May 10th for that returning, which is making me happy because obviously brush season's, forest fire season's on us.
Excuse me, Madam Chair. Mike, did you say 627 or 67?
No, I'm sorry, $6,000 to $7,000.
Thank you.
That's the current estimate. So,
It's good to catch right in the minutes.
so significant and new vehicle problem is the tower ladder. One of the things that we have to do, or we need to do as a town, is we need to certify our ladders to make sure they're safe. They have to be inspected. And then basically they have to be able to meet certain capacities, they're rated capacities. They have to be examined for cracks. And basically we've got a company that signs off and tells us that those ladders are safe. And obviously when we're putting our firefighters 100 feet or 95 feet up in the air, I want them confident in their equipment and feel safe and as safe as they possibly can be doing the job. During this test, during the certification test, which obviously protects the town from liability as well, but that's a secondary motivation. The ladder failed to raise due to a lack of hydraulic capacity. Basically, the hydraulic pump on the ladder truck failed to produce enough oomph or hydraulic pressure to cause the ladder to extend under load, under its rated capacity, or raise under load. So right now, it's at, I forgot the name of the place off the top of my head, but it's off in Plainville at a hydraulics a repair shop. Basically, they work on excavating equipment, things like that, specific to hydraulic failures. And they're going to determine the cause of this hydraulic problem. In reviewing the maintenance record of the ladder truck, it's been determined that no PM work has been done on the hydraulic system in the last 3 years, or since we've owned the fire truck. There was a PM done at the point of sale, and that alone could be the cause of the lack of hydraulic power or hydraulic performance. So that's going to be the first line of troubleshooting, is to change filters, make sure the hydraulic fluid itself is the right quality, and then they're going to go through and hit the valves in the plumbing of the hydraulic system, and they feel confident that they can correct the problem with basically relatively minor repairs. I have no estimate for the cost of this work yet. It's just a shot in the dark right now because they don't know specifically what's wrong with the truck. But currently our ladder truck is unable to be certified and unable to be used.
I think last time we asked, Middleborough is aware
Yeah.
of that issue we have too? Okay, so we're about $20,000 over on the maintenance budget right now without the ladder truck.
Well, we found $20,000 that was set aside, but was basically unspent money from last year's budget. And it was encumbered to take care of expenses related to engine 2's repairs. And it's something that wasn't communicated to me, and actually I was, when you were looking over my budget, I think that's something you identified and pointed out to me. And upon investigation, we found out subsequently that it was set aside for engine 2. So we're actually still in the black as far as repair costs.
Okay, so that's after the 20.
But I don't know if the accountant will let us use that,
The prior year,
the encumbrance.
the encumbrance from the prior year?
Yeah.
Wasn't it
So-
for engine 2?
It was specifically for engine 2.
Right, but you're going to need it for a different purpose?
No,
Yeah, but
that brings us back
I would,
from the.
yeah, the reason I was
Just pay the
overspending.
engine 2 bill with that, that's all.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
It's no big deal.
Okay, I
Just meaning
understand
that
it now.
now we're
Reallocating.
over.
We're going to be in the red, but
Eight.
we're nowhere near to the extent that we thought we were going to.
Right, and there should be plenty of money because
Right.
of the salary issues that is,
For the wages we
motions and
haven't
things like
raised.
that we never did until recently. So there should be money around.
Discussions with the town accountant, he doesn't anticipate any problem at all.
No.
So do you have a handle on a schedule now for maintenance for everything? Because you said like that hadn't been,
Yeah, I've actually talked to, I mean, the least expensive and most efficient option for us to do is utilize the town mechanic. And it's something that I've discussed with Franklin, and that's basically the plan, is to be more diligent with the maintenance of the trucks, because obviously, some of these problems occurred because of the PMs.
yeah. Well, and I mean, knowing that too, we don't want to overwhelm him. So, if there's like a schedule that you guys are working on.
Absolutely, I would definitely not want to be a burden to Billy. He's been good to
Yeah.
us.
Right, but when he was hired, he was gonna certainly look at some of this work, whether he sends it out to somewhere else is certainly under his purview. But we hired the town mechanic specifically to look at things, so even if Michael, should the chief decides to send a fire truck for repair, sounding it off Billy is always a good idea.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I'm not a
Because
mechanic.
some of the stuff is minor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and you could-
Hydraulics aren't very complicated.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, when you get into certifications, it matters what kind of credentials the
Oh,
mechanic
yeah,
has.
no, someone else should do it, but he can look at things. I mean, a lot of it is
I mean,
minor stuff.
I feel like
Absolutely.
if you didn't think if you thought it was gonna pass, maybe he could have checked it, whatever. If you knew it was gonna fail, he could have checked it ahead of time, changed out the fluids and stuff, but now that it's failed too, you have to go through the whole.
It's a 27-year-old piece of apparatus. A lot of trucks don't get used as much, so they have a great lifespan.
Yeah.
The certification that I'm most nervous, I wasn't nervous about this one. I was nervous about next year's. Every 5 years, they have to do a non-destructive test, which means they come in and they x-ray the ladder for cracks. That's the one where you cross your fingers and pray.
Yeah.
Because that's where they find catastrophic problems.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
All right. Okay. All right, our number 2.
I don't, is he in the room? I am requesting your consideration for the appointment of Nathan Gagne. He moved to the town of Lakeville from Freetown. He's an established, a veteran call firefighter over there. He's recently moved to I think it's Westmont area. And he has approached me about joining the Lakeville Call Fire Department. Comes highly regarded. It's kind of a great win for Lakeville and a blow to Freetown. He's kind of works from his home, so he's available during the days, which is key. This is a great win for me if I can have him appointed to the fire department as a call firefighter.
All right, I will entertain that motion.
So moved.
I'll second that.
The motion is approval, subject to a physical examination, physical abilities test, a 1-year probationary period.
All those qualifiers, I forget those all the time, sorry.
No problem. All right, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Thank you. So the next thing, I have to disclose, so I make a disclosure, and you'll find it, I hope I find it before you. The next two call firefighters, I'm unable to provide with a recommendation because of my sons. There's a set of conditions that I have to meet to be able to have them employed by the town of Lakeville. I have to disclose the fact that my sons, I can't be involved in their compensation, promotion, and I have to leave a buffer of supervision between me and them during routine operations. That was spelled out pretty clearly how I have to go about doing this. So I can tell you a little bit about them. They're both certified firefighters. They are both active firefighters. They are both performed interior fire attack, have been to car accidents. They've done all the things the firefighters do already. And I'll stop there and let you consider your application.
All right.
So the buffer that you talk about, who's the person that they would report to?
Well, as call firefighters, depending on which group they're put on, it could be Captain Dave DeBest or Captain Mike McCullough.
Okay.
That would be their immediate report.
Not anticipating any disciplinary action, but that would be, you would recuse yourself and...
I would call on Mrs. O'Brien, that's the real chief. I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so I will entertain a motion to approve Aiden O'Brien and Nolan O'Brien as call firefighters, subject to a department-approved physical examination and a 1-year probationary period. Expiration date July 31st, 2019, which would just roll over with our annual appointments that we do at that time.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
No.
Are you,
You can go ahead with that.
okay, all
This is
those
the
in
next one.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then you have to vote on the determination.
Okay.
Mike.
And so I will entertain a motion to approve the determination as an appointing official as required by General Law, Chapter 268A, Section 19, that we have reviewed the particular matter and the financial interest identified above by a municipal employee and have determined that the financial interest is not so substantial as to be deemed likely to affect the integrity of the services which the municipality may expect from the employee.
Moved?
Am I
Go
gonna,
down the line.
I know, am I gonna do them all?
Yes, yes,
All
don't
right,
change the
any
system.
discussion? All those
Okay.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. And you don't have to work for your dad. He made that very clear.
Yeah.
He made that very clear. He's working for the two guys behind you.
All right, agenda item number 4, we're going to meet with our superintendent of streets to discuss the following items. We've got 4 items, Franklin, in front of us.
Congratulations, guys. Do you want to shake hands?
You're taking the whole audience with you.
All right. So, Franklin, first item we have in front of us is the beta contract for the gasoline recovery at the highway barn. So I know we have an amendment number 3 from beta for $9,400 to complete the following objectives: conduct up to 4 additional groundwater monitoring events and prepare 3 post-temporary solution status reports. And we have the concentration sheds at the highway garage. I know that at least John and I have gone through this numerous times with kind of what's going on, but I don't know if you want to give a little bit of an overview to a few people.
So what we're looking at now with this is, technically the last couple of years it's been $5,000 because we're doing semi-annual. We're on a trend right now where when the water tables are getting higher, the contamination is getting a lot lower. So the reason being that I upped it a little bit is we just had a test last week. Groundwater's pretty high, and you need 4 quarters straight with low contamination. So that being said, if we see that the next quarter the water table's high again, it gives me the flexibility of possibly doing another sampling event. And then going into the semi-annual, which is going to be one we'd have to do anyway, and then just gambling on basically that one, that hopefully going into that 4th one, we're in good shape. What we'll do is we'll check the groundwater level first, make sure we're in that area. If you look at the graph on there, which it's not that simple to kind of figure out, but basically high groundwater, low contamination, low groundwater, high contamination, and the DEP is fine even if we tested all 4 quarters with a high groundwater table and we get low contamination, which, kind of speaking to the guy, he says our contamination level right now is, we're on a good trend to hopefully finish this up relatively soon. So there's a possibility we could finish it up this year. If not, we're on a good trend for the next couple of years.
Yeah, so I don't know, Leah, if you got a chance to kind of understand what's been going on as we've,
Yep, and I'm very familiar with the whole testing process and everything, so.
So I will entertain a motion to approve the amendment number 3 from Beta in the amount of $9,400.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, the MS4 permit. So now we have some additional prices in front of us for the MS4 tasks 1 through 4 that need to be completed by June 30th, 2019. We had already included $25,000 in the budget for those items. There's an additional $10,000, I guess, related to those items for tasks 1 through 4. And then tasks 5 and 6 are included for fiscal year 20 that I guess we'll have to put into the budget. We didn't have that listed in the budget right now, so we should be putting that in probably under a separate line item for MS4. Okay. So
all these numbers are subject to change moving forward, probably going downwards rather than upwards. Because as the first year, task 3, which is basically the main task going in, that's all your planning, mapping, as far as all our outfalls go, which is 32, as you know. That basically, they'll test it, see if there's contamination, things of that nature, and not to get too far ahead, but that's where we go into tasks like 3.2, 3.3 on the next year, where if we find any contamination, we'll be following that contamination, mapping it, trying to find the source, things of that nature. I would say this year, going into the end of this fiscal year, this is mostly all administration stuff after that. So it's going to be changing bylaws that we'll be submitting to you guys in the planning board. Going over best management practices as far as sweeping, catch basin cleaning, so I'll be meeting with them, going over standard SOPs on how that's done, the way we do it, what processes we're going through to get it done. And then a training for everyone. That's another thing that's going to be, which is...
The only thing too is when we first did the first MS4 kind of meeting that was out there, so since we're part of Surgis, this is one thing that I had, or whatever it is, I never say it right.
Yeah.
And so they were going to do a website that would do all the outreach and the education and things like that. So that's all not included in this quote, right? Because...
No.
Okay, so that's just in addition to what...
It hasn't gone in yet.
Okay.
But that's something that I actually talked to them about today.
Okay.
So they did get a grant, like maybe 10 years ago or something like that, but they never kind of followed through with it.
Okay.
But that's something now they're starting to implement.
Okay.
So we'll be able to get a lot of resources off of them.
Great.
And that's where I'm saying, like, a lot of these, like the training moving forward, where it's like $1,500 a year, ultimately we could get that through Sursage or something like that, and to knock things like that off the list.
Okay.
The amounts of money we put aside for stormwater management through the years is we put some money to the side in the very beginning. And of course, then the laws never passed until last year. Do we have significant amounts of money?
We had $15,000 for the notice of intent, and we paid for that through the operating budget. That was prior to you. So I'm using that $15,000 to you for the capital in this year. But we also have $25,000 in this year's budget set aside for stormwater, which will cover all but $10,000 of the tasks we have to do in this year. But we're gonna have to have 83,800.
So it wasn't more than that
No.
put aside?
Yeah, I think we had talked about it at one point, or we
Okay.
talked about,
We
you know,
never did it.
100,000 or something, but we never did
We
it
never
because
did.
it was just gonna be, you know, test kits or something that we were gonna
Right.
buy because it kept getting delayed and delayed and delayed,
Right.
so.
But we don't have 83,800, 83,800 in your budget for FY '20. We don't have anything, right?
No,
Right.
that's because we got this after. We just got this about a week ago, I think.
I don't know if we want to include that in capital.
Then when it talked about the facilities to be inspected,
Yep.
then it talked about 2 additional facilities selected by the town. How did those facilities get picked? Did they get picked years ago, and now we can add 2 more to it?
That I'm not sure about.
You're not
That's
sure?
the same, yeah, that's the same question I have, because, I mean, it says, you know, like, John Want Park isn't,
They all have to be inspected.
Yeah,
um,
pretty sure
I mean-
But it's not all in one year.
but Ted Williams compared to, you know, there's a huge size difference. Does that matter? I mean, is that how they, by usage, or you don't know how
I
that's
believe
determined?
It'll be wherever the outflow is, so it doesn't necessarily, I don't think, matter how big the property is as far as where the outflow of
The
the water's
outflow,
going.
okay.
So, for example, a highway bond, they're really only gonna be testing the outflow that's going out onto Montgomery
Onto the
Street.
street, okay.
And they'll also be looking at our garage and things like that to see where contamination may be going into the ground.
Right, but if we're gonna pick 2 other locations, wouldn't we pick the high school and the grade school? I mean,
That I'm not sure about.
I don't know how you pick them.
I think it's
Yeah.
where.
Because there aren't any real outflows anyways.
Well,
And
town
it's-
hall,
Well, the town hall, the outflow obviously is in Route 18, but that's state.
yeah,
That's
that's
not
maybe a
our
conversation
outflow.
we revisit, I can find
Well,
out some more
the
information.
confusing part is someone picked 15 facilities. They don't even have outflow for most of them. It isn't like they're near any catch basins. The town hall technically is, but it's state.
So I mean,
Okay.
are
But
you,
it's our water going into the state. I think that's why we have to have town hall done.
yeah, I think, I mean,
I have no idea how it
Yeah.
got picked. I'm not gonna make a big deal out of that, but
Maybe if you could
if you
just-
need to pick 2 more facilities, pick 2 more schools, I would assume.
Okay, yeah, I
You know.
can, I mean, obviously there's a lot to this, so
right, and I
I'm
mean,
learning a lot of it, but, you know.
and a lot of it, yeah, is too, is coming through the consultant from Environmental Partners of picking those areas. So,
Right.
you know, whatever their rationale is for, you know, picking those particular spots is
Yep.
kind of up to the engineer.
But the money that's needed, you just mentioned, how much was that
It's gonna be another 83,000.
for?
83,000.
We
Test 5 and 6, $83,000 for fiscal year 20. Some of it doesn't need to be done until 2021. They want to do it. But-
Based on the timeline of all of the, that's included in your package, they've broken it out for each year.
Right, but task 5,
5 and 6 can be done next year. So he's included it
Right.
on the chart in FY '20.
Yeah, John, are you looking at the
right.
page
Some of
where-
it doesn't need to be done until 21.
Right, I think if we get kind of a clear
Yeah,
idea as to
yeah.
what goes into the budget for this year that we
Right.
need, you know, what exactly it is that's gonna be going in there, because I know that does say, you know, 1 through 4, the 35,000
Yeah.
is due at the end of this year.
So-
And
so-
then we have the additional 5 and 6, so it's 5, 6 plus a couple other things. that
Right,
that's
but not for
happening.
this year's budget. Is that correct?
We have to do 35,000 in this year's budget.
Yeah,
We have 25.
Right, so you're only looking for 10?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, that's,
yeah,
So
it's
it's
just,
not
it's
like
pretty
big
much.
money.
Yeah, so that's.
But you have
It's
to
not big
plan for
money.
next, what you want to do in next year's.
Yeah,
right, but some of the next year's doesn't have to be done, that they want to accelerate it, but legally you don't have to do it. It was no different than other agencies. You know, we kept, the stormwater management laws never passed. the agency says, oh, we should do them anyways. Why the hell would we do them?
Yeah, we'll just get the
Yeah,
clarification and just
okay.
what. we'll
You're
decide
only
to
looking
put
for
into the budget.
$10,000.
Yeah.
Well, in the current year, so that'll be a
Yeah.
transfer
Yeah, right.
that we'll have to do at town meeting, special
Right.
town meeting. And then it's really for the tasks that are gonna be
10.
completed for next year, then how do we fit those into the budget?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, okay. Look for 10.
all right, ABC disposal and waste management, solid waste disposal. So we got first a quote from ABC disposal, and then we went out and we got another quote from waste management, so.
If I can just say on ABC, first, he only gave me 1 year, then he came back with the 2-year, and when I told him I'd like the 3-year, he said, it's just so volatile, the market, and he doesn't know where he's gonna be in 3 years, so he said he would quote an amount, but whether or not he'd be able to go through with it. But Franklin wants to update, he did go out to Waste Management.
Yeah, so I prefer to go with ABC, but for a 2-year contract, take out the 3rd year, and revisit it at that time. But the main reason I'd like to go to ABC disposal, which we visited, Middleborough dump site, which is, it's a cheaper rate. But with any landfill, it comes down to the wear and tear on the truck. So they had a decent facility, so I'm not trying to put down their facility, but it's just like any other landfill where you're literally driving up the mountain onto the landfill, down into the ditch to dump your garbage, back up the mountain and out, over garbage, over, they put cover on it and whatnot. But what that does is it puts a lot of wear and tear on our truck, and what's happened in the past, obviously before me, is they go through a lot of tires. And for example, a tire on the roll-off truck is probably close, I got the number for Billy today to make sure, he said it's around $700 installed for one tire. We do roughly, we put 1,000 tons in there, but roughly we do around 700 tons. So when you see the cost difference, literally blowing one tire in the year would cover the difference in the cost. And that's just talking about tires, that's not talking about, we just put like $6,000 into the springs in the rear end of that truck. We just redid the clutch and the transmission, and it's like $120 right now to buy that truck. It was like $150, and the less wear and tear we put on that truck, the better off we got. So that's why ABC drive-in pavement road, drive into basically like a parking lot. They back you up to like this edge and dump your load. You're not going through a landfill to go and dump your load.
Is that at the new
And that will be
zero
their
waste
new-
management off of 58?
Yep, and which also another plus to it is when you go into this new waste facility, it's a lot more eco-friendly because they're sorting the garbage. So they're taking any leftover recyclables that are in the garbage out. So that's an added plus, but that's not my main reason. My main reason is just taking care of our truck.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve a contract with ABC Disposal for 2 years, fiscal year July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020 at $82.50 a ton, and fiscal year July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021 at $85.50 per ton.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All right, and the road bond warrant article. All right, so we have in front of us a listing from Beta Engineering Group that has been gone through, and Franklin has reviewed this, which gives us an estimate of a high and a low cost related to what it would cost to pave, looks like 15, 16 different streets, most of the major
25
thoroughfares.
miles of main roads.
25 miles of main roads in the town, with the lower estimated cost of $4.3 million and the higher cost of $7.2 million. So we know that we've had a lot of issues in the past in the fact that the ability for the town to keep up with the road maintenance based upon Chapter 90 funds that we receive is not something that we're able to really do. We will have a warrant article on town meeting related to Rhode Island Road. Now that we have seen that we will have somewhere between who knows what and who knows what of land takings, easements, utility movements, that we're looking for that article really to be about $2 million. So we're facing pretty much a need to have a debt exclusion that we're going to put forward at town meeting to allow us to go to the ballot box to vote on a debt exclusion to take care of the roads, which need to be repaired in a lot of different ways, and at a means by which the town can't afford it without going out for a debt exclusion. So that being said, I know, Franklin, we had you kind of go through and make sure that you were working with the engineer to determine what the cost would be to upgrade these roads at this point in time prior to them falling even further into disrepair. And the longer that we wait on these maintenance or the repairs of these roads would lead to additional costs that the town will have to bear at some point in time. So we've been having, these conversations. We started it probably 2 years ago when we were talking with the finance committee about the need to do a road bond at some point in time. And I think at this point, we've all been deciding that, we want to put it to the taxpayers to determine if they're willing to raise their taxes to repair our roads. Other than that, we'll keep patching with few funds that we have that exist through our existing budget and through our Chapter 90 allotment. I'm mixing the schools with the roads. Not a good thing to do. But I think we're getting $360,000 or so this year in Chapter 90 money, so that's all that the state allots for us to do, and we've had a hard time trying to put money in through the operating budget to take care of the roads, so.
What did you just say about the capital? You said something about dollars a second ago, 200 and something thousand?
360 for Chapter 90.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're, just bringing in 360,000 in Chapter 90.
Right.
So it's just an impossible task to repair the roads with the money that we're allotted through the state, and/or we need to make sure that we're doing something within the town to take from other resources to be able to repair those roads that are needing to be repaired, along with Rhode Island Road.
Right. So what I had suggested is that Route 79, our responsibility according to the state, we have enough Chapter 90 money to pay the balance of Beta's fees, but we have to hire an assessor and we have to do some land takings. They were estimating $2.3 million for that. And then I had thought of, you may not spend it all, but that was their estimate. And I had thought of going for a $3 million road bond, which would finish up Route 79, potentially give you $700,000 for other projects if you spent the full $2.3 million. If you didn't, we could just continue doing another road or two. Franklin has enough money to do Freetown Street and Precinct Street anyways, and that's what he's doing.
Precinct Street and the Freetown Street, County Street intersection.
But Precinct Street, $988,000, 2 miles.
We're looking in a good place to be at the
You have that money.
618. Precinct Street, we're in good shape.
Precinct Street, you have the money.
Yep. And we're not
Freetown
looking at-
Street, you're doing the end, up to, say up to Baby G Farms, headed that way. Is the engineering for that?
Well, it says engineering.
$150,000?
It says engineering, but it's engineering and the cost of doing that.
Because the
possibly.
engineering isn't anywhere near that.
No, that's the engineering, and that's I'm dealing with that this week. I'm meeting back with Ryan, and I have some other alternatives that I have to kind of look at because the prices have gone a little higher than they should be, and I don't feel we should be putting that much money into the state's layout, which is basically seems like what we're doing at this point. So there's some alternatives that I've come up with that.
But you have enough Chapter 90 money now to do the end of Freetown Street to Baby G Farms, or thereabouts.
Yep.
And you have enough money to do Precinct Street. We have enough money to pay
Yes.
the balance of Beta engineering. So the money that we need on the town floor, per the state, is $2.3 million to do Route 79.
Yeah, so it's Route 79 is, if we can get it in at $2.3 million for all of what's used at Route 79, then there's the additional, at the low end, 3.7 million of these other roads that are in need of repair. So if that, if we are able to bond 4 million, 5 million, whatever the number might end up being, if we can get something for it, then we'll be able to take care of Route 79 and some of the other roads that are in need of repair at this moment.
Right.
Other than that, we'll end up with a, if we have 3.7 million, on these roads, if some miraculous reason, that's the lower estimated cost, if they never got worse, which won't happen, it would take us 10 years to be able to pave those roads, and by that point in time, they'd be
Right, so
such
what do you
horrendous
want,
repair.
what do you want to do with town floor for
For the dollar amount?
for the dollar amount? I mean, that's what we need to pick.
And
Yeah.
these in any order of like the worst to the best, or is it just?
RSR is road
alphabetical.
surface rating?
It's alphabetical. It is. It is, okay, sorry about that.
Yeah, RSR is the road surface rating.
Okay, all right.
But that doesn't this isn't necessarily the order they'd be going in, that would be the next step.
Well, you have to put it in order because we're going to be on town floor. They're going to want to know which streets and what order we're doing them.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that's the ideal situation, but I
Right.
wasn't even sure if this was technically gonna definitely go to town floor, so I wasn't gonna keep putting work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Well,
we
so
just need to
they'll
have
want to know,
Well,
so
we have to
anything.
pick the dollar amount that we want to go, and then that way it would be
Right,
that what
right,
we could
shouldn't-
sell
We
this.
shouldn't beat around the bush, we have to do at least 3 million. And it can, if you want to go for higher,
Yeah,
I
mean,
don't
I'd
want to.
say, I would say at least 4, only
Yeah, I mean-
because I don't want to, when all is said and done, you're only able to do 2 more roads, and I think that,
Right.
we're trying to get something done. Ideally, I'd like to see more, but I don't know if
Yeah,
that's going to be
yeah.
tolerated.
Put them in the order, and we have to pick the amount of money.
Yeah. But we want to select an amount of money, correct?
Yeah, I mean,
2.3 for Route 79,
Yeah.
and the balance of 1.7 for other roads. So the taxpayers are going to want to know which roads you're going to do for 1.7.
Well, if I know it's 1.7, then I can prioritize what I
Right.
can
Well,
do.
Which other roads?
right now, if it's a $4 million bond, it'd be 1.7.
yeah. I mean, I think from trying to balance the tolerances of what town meeting is going to want to approve and what we're going to be asking for, I think that 4 is somewhat of a reasonable number, with the hopes that Route 79 comes in a lot less than the
Right.
2.3. So therefore, we can take the additional funds.
Right.
And that would be an ability for us to utilize that to hit other roads that are of a higher priority. So if you guys are good with that, I'm happy to bring it forth on town meeting floor with the $4 million.
I'm happy to do
Yeah.
that, but we don't want to, we just want to pick another 1.7 projects, whether you pick,
Yep,
whether you
yeah.
pick 2.7,
Right.
that's okay. You rank them up to 2.7, but don't count what we're already going to be doing. Don't count Precinct Street
Yes,
and the end of Freetown Street, because we're going to have those done.
yeah, that's why it's under chapter 90.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
so if you could
So
get,
we're going to ask, well, 4 million.
Yeah.
Out of the 4 million, 2.3 is for Route 79 alone, correct?
unless we hear otherwise.
Otherwise.
Right, and we're not going to know that, we're not going to know that number for
Right.
another
And
year or two.
Right, and I think that it's important too, because the fact of the matter is, with Route 79, we've had so many differences of information that has come to us over this span that we've been trying to work with Route 79. But the issue is that if, we're looking to get Mass DOT to do it right, to fix the drainage, to make sure that everything is taken care of, that we do need the state to come in and do it. They're offering now whatever the project's worth, $9 million or something at this
So
point in time.
10.4 right now.
10.4, so it's going to keep going up, that the state's putting into this. And, our requirement for easements and utility pole movements is kind of escalating, but hopefully we get to a number, because we'll have to hire the engineer to do the appraisals to make sure we know exactly what that will be. But at least if we authorize that, we won't have to borrow it until we know. We won't have to bond it, I guess,
Right.
until we actually know what that number really
Right,
looks
but
like.
we'll-
But if we're doing 4 and it gets approved, then we can bond for the rest of it, or do some
You'll do the
bands
bands
to get there.
first, and then
Yeah,
once you're
yeah.
done,
So we're
then
getting
you'll go
authorization
offline.
for $4 million.
Yeah.
Can I just ask one more question on the RSR? Is lower number worse or
Worse,
better?
yes.
Worse.
All right. I think that
Yep.
does it. Any other questions, Franklin?
Madam Chair?
Yes?
If I may, not that it rises to the level of these items, but I'd like to ask if we know where the Old Colony signs, the Walter Markham signs, where that project might stand?
Franklin and I, we talked about it, we were gonna wait until the snow season was over, and then,
Are we expecting any snow?
Yeah, I know.
I'm just curious, thank you,
Yeah.
that's fine.
the Old Colony signs where we
Do
were
you
gonna.
represent Old Colony?
I do.
Yeah.
So we need an updated list on exactly where they were planning.
I'll be happy to tell you right now.
Okay.
All right, oh, great. Okay, so our next item is at 7:30, so we're gonna have to wait for agenda item number 5. So we're just going to jump to agenda item number 6.
Thank you for.
Thanks, Franklin.
Is Nate there?
I saw Mark back there, so we're bringing you up front, agenda item number 6.
Nate wanted to be here.
Oh, yes. Nate still there?
How you doing today?
Doing well, how are you?
Very well, Mark Knox for the record.
Excellent. Is Nate out there? Is he
No,
coming?
I don't.
Well, I think, do you guys feel like we need Nate? We had Nate talking about this when we were in the executive session.
Yeah, I think he pretty well got us up to
Okay.
date.
Okay, great. So agenda item number 6 is to review and vote on the bid proposal for the current police station located at 296 Bedford Street. So we advertised the old police station on MLS. It was advertised and there was a site walk that was out there. We had one bid, which was Mark Knox, who came to us with a bid proposal. And Mark, you give us a nice letter explaining exactly what you plan on doing with the old police station as well. And then we sent this to town council to make sure that we knew exactly what kind of conditions were going to be on the purchase and sale agreement, which I guess you have agreed to, with regard to the conditions, which, that's the,
Full building permit.
yeah, so it would be helpful if Nate was here, but we don't have Nate here. So did we decide it was the transfer of the property is contingent upon the demolition and the permit to reconstruct within 1 year's time?
I believe it wasn't reconstruct, but obtain a permit
A permit
to start the
to
process
purchase in 1
within 1
year's
year,
time.
because the boards would take some time, and I still need to get plans drawn.
Okay,
And to go through the special permit process because it's a pre-existing non-conforming lot
yep. And that's all
with reasonable extensions.
1 year time with reasonable extensions.
Yes.
And then the other piece was the performance guarantee if there were damages. And was that,
Nate thought maybe town council had asked what we thought, and Nate had thought $1,000 a month.
for a performance guarantee in the event that the special permit's not granted within a year? Right?
But Mark didn't know about the 1,000. So I don't know, I'm not quite sure how it works, if it would be, say it's a year, a $12,000 bond, performance bond.
So are you guys okay with approving it subject to town council's review and negotiation with Mark on those conditions?
Yep, can we just explain the $1,000? I'm a little unclear what the $1,000 would be for. That's a penalty if the conditions aren't met, correct? Okay.
And again, however, with reasonable extensions, that if I'm, 3/4 through the process,
Right.
have had commitments from, maybe ZBA and one more meeting, I would imagine that's
Right.
reasonable to say that there are no penalties.
Yep. Yeah.
It would be after the year if you hadn't done anything.
Yeah.
Hadn't pulled a building permit.
Right.
I had not submitted a petition to the ZBA.
Yeah, I agree to those.
Okay, great. So,
Right.
all right.
We're selling it
We're selling.
without
No conditions, right, no
Right,
contingencies.
no
It's-
conditions,
I mean,
as
it's
is.
subject to the
Right.
purchase and sale agreement that
Right.
will be drafted with
Right.
town council.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
so I'll entertain that motion to approve entering into a purchase and sales agreement drafted by town council. with those conditions as we just discussed, that will be amenable, that you will work with town council, I guess, and sign.
So moved.
Is there a timeline or anything that we need to, obviously the 1 year is from the time we,
Sign the purchase and sale agreement, yeah. Did we talk to town council? Do we know when they can get that squared away?
Probably this week. She gave us a sample. We've got to come up with dates, and we can work
that
that
sort of
out.
raises the caveat, I need to probably at some point have a surveyor go into what is the current police station, have access to things like that, so it wouldn't impede my schedule.
Right, yeah, so maybe the delay is after I don't know if we can do that, if we have to cease the use of the old police station before that can
I don't
Survey
care.
survey it?
No.
No, that's
Right, I
fine.
mean, I don't
They
care
would
if you
need to-
start the process July,
Yeah, I mean,
Something.
yeah.
I'm not looking to rush
Yeah.
anybody, and I expect the police to stay there as long as they need to stay there.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I would need it,
Yeah,
when
and
I
I
hire an
mean-
engineer, they're gonna have to go there, send land surveyors to pull points off neighboring wells, septics, to come up with a legitimate plan for me to go in front of the
And,
boards.
I mean, I
Right.
think it's reasonable that you clear the scheduling with
Right, and I just,
police if they're still
there
there.
are some minor things like that that we just need to have cooperation, maybe somebody let the chief know, or at dispatch, that
There's
process will
surveyors out
happen.
there, right.
Yeah,
That
and
it's not a
we'll,
surprise for them.
yeah, we'll allow for that to be done through town council, town administrator.
Yeah.
And
Does the town know, you know what you're gonna do with it?
I have proposed to the Board of Selectmen to tear it down and put up a 3,500 square foot attractive commercial building, maybe for retail or office space.
All right,
Yeah, I think those other things can probably just be worked out, you know.
all right. So,
So
motion?
I think we had moved it anyways.
Yeah, and a
Yeah.
and
second.
I'll second
Yeah.
that.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor?
I,
Aye.
And
Thank
then,
you. And you'll contact me when?
yes,
Okay.
there'll be a $2,000 deposit when we sign, an additional $2,000 on top of the 1,000
Yep,
when we sign the purchase and sales,
that's fine.
and then the remainder the day of the closing.
So just email me when we want to meet with town council.
Okay?
Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right.
Let's see, we probably want to get some more chairs from the other room. Want to take a couple minute break or something?
We can do that. I think what I can say too is we can move on to agenda item number 6. Agenda item number 5, but I need to recuse myself from the conversation, so I'm turning the meeting over to you, John.
Okay.
So
After you
wanna-
did that, we're gonna move on to number 5, but we're gonna take a 5-minute recess and get some more chairs so everyone can be comfortable. So we have them in the next room. 5-minute recess. Agenda item 5, maybe Victor Chang from Cypress Tree Management regarding marijuana cultivation and manufacturing establishment at 156 Crooked Lane. I've attached the following information that Victor Chang submitted to the board for Cypress Tree Management. So I'll just turn it over to Victor at this point in time, and he can explain to what he's doing.
Sure. Thank you for having me tonight. So like I said, my name's Victor Chang. I'm one of the founding partners of Cypress Tree Management, along with my partner Eric Liebman and Todd Fennard, who could not be here. We started Cypress Tree about 2.5 years ago to step into the marijuana space here in Massachusetts. Todd and I have known each other since we were 4 years old, so we are true childhood friends. We grew up in Weston, Massachusetts, and I've known Eric since somewhere in middle school. So these are lifelong friends and true partners that we can work with. When we first stepped into the space, we candidly spent a good year looking at a number of the operators here in Massachusetts, trying to understand the marketplace better. About a year ago, we started to seek our own license. In that time, we've gotten a provisional license from the state for cultivation in a dispensary in Newton. I know I included a presentation, but some of the team members are here. I think, most importantly, as we talk about cultivation and manufacturing, Jamie Sipes, who's our head of cultivation, and Adam Genro, who's head of our product development, are here. One of the things as we were forming this organization that was very important to us was putting together true operators. So both Jamie and Adam have deep cannabis experience, but specifically here in Massachusetts. They have designed, built, and operated facilities here in Massachusetts. And I point that out because Mass really does have the strictest standards in the country. So from a testing perspective, there's really not another state that is as challenging. So having people that have proven that they can operate here was really important to us. So as we get into the presentation, if you guys have questions, more about the true operations, they're both here. As well as Rick Nagel, who is the head of our security. He is a long experienced retired state trooper, has a lot of experience in this space, understanding both the regulations from DPH and Cannabis Control Commission, and can sort of address any questions around security. Sort of turning to, in the presentation, slide 6, where we stand today. We do have the provisional license from the old Department of Health, so prior to the conversion over to CCC. We have cited a dispensary in Newton, Massachusetts. So it's cited currently for medical. We are in process to getting the special permit for adult use. We expect hopefully to have that by sometime in May, latest June. We are also citing dispensaries in Fenway, the Seaport, and Natick, Massachusetts. So, really, as an organization, we've spent a lot of time trying to put together some strong retail footprint. And as part of this, the state does only permit 3 dispensaries, so our objective is to cite 3 great retail locations. But also to be sure, be clear here is that we are not seeking a retail or a dispensary license here in Lakeville. So this is purely cultivation and manufacturing. Just to give a little sense of what we're doing, slide 7 shows the existing property we acquired in Newton. It's an old Chinese food restaurant and beauty salon, 8,200 square foot building. It is candidly needing of a little bit of love. Slide 8 really tries to show a rendering of what we propose to the town of Newton in terms of the kind of build out we would do. So just to give a sense of, as an organization, the type of work we would want to bring to Lakeville. Specifically talking to the project, our objective here is to build a all-in, somewhere between 50,000, 60,000 square foot facility, about 10,000 of it for manufacturing. So that's the extraction, kitchen, creating the marijuana infused products, and the balance being for cultivation or the grow. As a rough figure, we're anticipating spending about $14 million to fully build out that facility. And on this, we partnered with the Crossler team in the back here, and it's their property. They would help not only be the landlords, but also do the construction. Slide 10 just sort of shows the proposed site. Slides 11, 12, and 13, we've spent some time with our architects and MEP firms to start putting together some rough plans. 12 is supposed to show some of the layout of the cultivation. Slide 13 to show the lab and manufacturing space. Again, these are just drafts, sort of our first cut. We just wanted to show that, we're trying to put a lot of effort into this, and that, we've done this numerous times, so we're not sort of a fly-by-night organization. I thought I'd let Rick speak for a few minutes just about kind of his background and security and sort of understanding the regs.
Thank you. My name is Rick Nagel. I'm retired from the Massachusetts State Police. I served over 30 years, retired as a detective lieutenant. I started working in the marijuana field at the beginning. The reason I did so is because I wanted to make sure it was done right. I was stationed here in Middleborough for a while. I was in charge of the cold case unit, which we worked on unsolved murders throughout Massachusetts. Then as I got promoted, I was in charge of narcotics, which means that anything that is seized in Massachusetts is secured at our headquarters in Framingham. And one of the responsibilities is to make sure we have secure transportation, policy and procedure, and make sure the instruction is complete. Prior to getting there, it was compromised, it was broken into. We did a lengthy investigation, we put someone in jail for over 10 years, and we changed all the rules and policy and procedure for every district attorney's office, attorney general's office, every barracks in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So I have experience doing this, and I wanted to do it from the beginning. I've been involved with over 15 dispensaries, cultivation sites in Massachusetts. I currently get hired by our town to do peer reviews, which means anyone who's coming in, they're asking me to be in the forefront to review these applicants. So I have experience doing it. Meaning now in Lakeville, they want to do a cultivation. What does that mean? There's no dispensary, means no traffic. You have no customers. It's a shut-down facility 24/7. For a security point of view, that makes me breathe easy. Because what that means is we can shut down this facility, public is not invited. It's going to be the workers and visitors. And what I mean by visitors, if Department of Public Health is coming in or the Cannabis Commission, they're going to be escorted, badged, logged in and out. So it's going to be a secure facility. Of course, state-of-the-art equipment like any facility. We're going to have 24/7 cameras, state-of-the-art cameras. They're going to be data for 90 days. We have worked with the police department. I know Lakeville Police. I've worked with them when I was out of Middleborough. They're a very good department. I like to work with them at the beginning of construction. Look at the facility, tell us what the patrols, what they think about it. I also want to know that we're going to be a good neighbor. God forbid anything happens in the community and we have cameras and they want to access our cameras, we welcome that. So we will have all the equipment, meaning glass break detectors, motion detectors, et cetera, et cetera. So for a security point of view, I feel very comfortable with the cultivation site because it's a shutdown facility. Thank you. And if you have any questions, let me know.
And really just to sort of summarize, right, I mean, you know, we are, I think if you were to reach out and talk to kind of some of the other communities we've reached out to and trying to partner with, we do really want to be a good partner here, right? We are not from Lakeville, but we all grew up here in Massachusetts. This is home. Todd and I have young kids. Eric is recently married. You know, so this is something that we take very seriously, and we are, you know, committed to not only clean capital, but the effort to do it sort of the right way, if you will, and to be a real partner to Lakeville. Obviously, you know, we will, in terms of economic impact, I know there's the host community agreement to discuss, and then obviously increased property taxes, but, you know, we're also committed to local hiring, and at full scale, this will be a pretty big operation. So I mean, that was sort of the quick summary. Welcome questions.
Okay. I'm sure the floor will have questions, but I just have a couple of basic questions. You gave a projected revenue for 2019-2021. What share of production is done in, or the revenue side is done in the Lakeville side? Because our general host community agreements for a we'll call it a grow facility, is that we get $25 per pound as you ship them to your medical and retail facilities wherever you get those licenses. So I'm interested in what is the projected poundage that you would be producing out of this facility. And then I've seen in a business plan a suggestion of a 100,000 square foot building, but we're talking 50, 60,000. So then it just bodes the question, will you be wanting to expand in the future? And then I have other questions, but let's maybe just address, what do you think you're going to be producing for poundage out of the Lakeville facility?
Well, I guess I'll turn to Jamie and put him a little on the spot. If we were to do 50,000 square feet.
Realistically, 50,000 square feet of a building with 70% efficiency with regards to canopy square footage, you're looking more like around maybe 30,000 square foot of canopy. Pulling anywhere from, I'm just doing some quick maths since I'm on the spot.
You could think about it for a few minutes. Let's think about it, because our revenue side is, because you're not in the retail business, you know, that those percentages are kind of somewhat fixed by the state. There's the host community agreements. Have you reviewed what we've supplied other
We looked at
marijuana facilities?
We looked at the Tricom one.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. And so we just want to understand what revenue is on the side of Lakeville, just so we can understand the revenue, part of that.
Yeah.
And then the building size, I saw in a business plan 100,000, but we talked 50, 60. Will you be expanding?
I think ultimately the market will dictate.
Okay.
If demand at our dispensaries are there and we can support additional canopy, we would want to come back and expand. Cultivation is by far the greatest capital expenditure. So out of the gate, we don't want to sort of go all in and sort of let the market drive whether the demand is really there.
And you certainly know, because I've seen it in the plans, that there's a daycare facility down the street from you folks.
Yeah.
And I see in a schematic that was given, says how many feet from the building to the building. I can't sit here and talk about the legalese, whether it should be from property line to property line, and does that prevent you from expanding? You don't have to answer that.
Yeah.
But expanding down the street, meaning down 79,
Yeah.
not further down Crooked Lane. If you did Crooked Lane, you probably would be on the safe side.
Right. Well, I mean, obviously the regulations are something we absolutely want to follow. As we looked at it, the state regulations and as we looked at the Lakeville zoning ordinance, it seemed to be the 500 feet to a K through 12. My understanding, this is a daycare, and I looked it up on the state website. So I guess we didn't want to come and say we're going to do a site-to-site.
Right. What I don't want you to do is spend $14 million and find out that you shot 50 feet.
Yeah.
Because it should be from property line to property line and not building to building. And I'm not even sure that, I'd have your attorneys obviously research the daycare. Do they have proper licenses? Does it fall under the scope of the law? Meaning it's really not a school.
Yeah,
It's 10 or less. So you don't have to answer those, but I don't want you to spend $15 million and find out you shot 50 feet.
Yeah, no, I mean, to be honest, right, I guess we would expect in the special permit process that if we needed to seek a variance for that, if part of Lakeville's ordinance required it, we would ask for it then. So we would find out before, any construction begins.
Just forewarning you.
Yeah.
Not as a warning, but information.
Yes, and again, so we have Sierra Grant here. She's one of our legal counsels to specifically, and I had her sort of look at Lakeville's ordinance, and also she understands the state regs. So we are sort of comfortable saying that this needs to be to a school. And our understanding is this daycare is not a school in terms of...
Right, and that's really the legalese question. I thought it may fall under the scope, meaning it's a non-issue, but I'm not the attorney on that side.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, so give us that world.
Did I go to the mic?
Sure.
Yeah, sure, okay. So big issue here that causes confusion is there's two sets of regulations currently. Under the medical regulations and the medical law, it does include daycares, K through 12 schools, 500 feet buffer zone. Under the adult use, it's just K through 12 schools. Now, those are sort of the default buffer zones if a town decides not to adopt its own ordinance or zoning buffer. And in the case of Lakeville, from what I saw, the zoning is 500 feet from a preschool and a K through 12 school. So that would sort of override the state law. If the zoning ordinance had included daycares, then of course this would be an issue. But as I understand it, the town's allowed to do less than the law, but not more than the law. And in this case, they did do less than the regulations. And something to point out, obviously, there's a inequality here between the buffer zones. And as the CCC, the Cannabis Control Commission, gets a grasp on that, we do expect the buffer zones to sort of align together so that there isn't this big difference. But even if the town does have a concern with the daycare in terms of what the zoning ordinance allows, certainly be willing to work through that. But it would create an issue under medical potentially, but not under adult use. So that's a
Right,
long-winded.
no, and I thought that really would be said, but when I saw the measurement of building to building, should it be property line to property line?
So I have to take a look at Lakeville. It's how Lakeville tends, how you measure distances. It's funny because I know like the city of Lynn, it's as you would walk from one front door to the next. So every city and town's different. Definitely want to take a look at what it is.
I'll ask our zoning, Nate Dowling.
Sure.
Yeah. Do we do point, Nate, this isn't a legal discussion because this will all be research, but is it point-to-point, property line to property line, Nate?
Our bylaws call out property line to property line, but they do call out the K through 12. And that's the adult use. And I would also agree that, we recognize that there's the dissimilarity between how we treat, a registered medical dispensary and an adult use facility. And so with the medical rather, we cite CMR, which I'm not 100% sure, but I believe the CMR that we cite is no longer in existence.
Right, 105 CMR 725, right, no longer in existence, been replaced by 935 CMR 501.
So it'd probably be nullified and revert to our adult use, but I'm not sure.
Right. I'm just pointing it out for those that may have a question.
Of course.
For that, and I think that you may find that it falls under the purview because we'll call it a daycare, but it's daycare for young children. It's limited, I believe, to 10 or less. So I'm not even sure it comes under anyone's purview, even the state's purview. But haven't said that. So, did you come up? Thank you.
No
Did you come up
problem.
with a magic poundage?
Poundage, a conservative number of year, 11,000 pounds per year.
Okay.
It equates to 275, give or take.
Yeah, okay. We certainly, as a board, and then I'll have Leah ask a question she may have, and then we'll open it to the public. We certainly, to date, have embraced, certainly talking to all of the marijuana business owners. We've given non-opposition letters to most. Not a lot of people have necessarily gone forward. There's certainly 2 or 3 very competent people that are putting a lot of money into their facilities, but not all have. So to this date, we've had a welcoming effect. We had limited to industrial zones, which pretty much was the industrial park. So the people that generally spoke in opposition of it, generally, were business owners within that industrial park. So they were speaking from the neighborhood, if you will. This is a little bit different in that it's zoned industrial, but it truly has houses near it, which is the first facility that we're entertaining, if you will, that has houses near it. So just pointing that out. Leah, do you have any questions before we open it to the public?
I don't really have a whole lot of questions because you went over a lot of things. It's just, at this time, you are not looking for a dispensary in Lakeville, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Might that change?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Yeah, the other questions I might have are probably more
Okay.
legal.
Does the public have some questions and come up and introduce yourself and they'll try to answer them?
Yeah, I go first. My name is Mark Bosse. I live on Johnson Drive right near the facility.
Excuse me, so could you spell your last name, please?
B-O-S-S-E with an accent, Bosse.
Thank you.
I can't tell you how disappointed I am to hear that this is what we've come to after, all these years and everything else. This state may have authorized and legalized the sale and distribution and growing of marijuana, but this town is still the reddest town in the state of Massachusetts. Voting Republican is more often than anybody else. We've come to the point now where we're actually soliciting more drugs in our neighborhoods, more drugs in this town. For what? The dollars? Is that what you were promised? $25 a pound from these guys? And as a state police officer, I'm so disappointed in you that you're doing this because you were dealing with the drugs and trying to keep them out of the state and arresting people for doing exactly what these people want to do now, and you're at the forefront of pushing this crap down our throats. I'm so embarrassed for you. It's ridiculous.
I would like to speak on that subject.
We're in a situation here where instead of condoning and advocating and opening our arms for the few precious 30 pieces of silver for these people to grow their crap in our backyard, that we've lost our way if we want to go through with this. Is that the promise that these people are given? The money that they're going to put out for this horrible addition of more drugs, not only in our neighborhood, but through the state and wherever else they sell it? Every time you have more drugs, there's more problems. A facility there at that corner, they say there's not going to be there's going to be traffic. We can't even get out of our street as it is. That's the least of it. We shouldn't be condoning and prospering from drug sales, use, manufacture, distribution, or anything else. That's what you're promised, $25 a pound? I can promise you this, that if the people on this select board are going to vote for this, then all the people here that disagree with it, all the people in the town, will actively vote against you folks on your next election. This is a horrible, disgusting opportunity being presented to the town, and we have no conscience at all to accept this vile production of more marijuana being introduced to the public and into our town. You should be ashamed of yourselves to even be considering this. The people in Lakeville, I have to believe for the most part, are not in agreement with this. And you shouldn't be opening the doors up to people like this for a few lousy dollars that will ultimately cost us more money down the road. There are people in here that are neighbors. We absolutely and violently object to the institution, to the building, development, or anything about this business. It is the wrong thing to do. I reserve the right to come back.
Hi, I'm Barbara Mayakovsky. I'm on planning board. I'm also, many years ago, was a member of the master plan community, which was almost 20 years ago. And during that time on master plan, it was very important to me to review what the community said in the community survey. And the residents would be surveyed and asked, what do you want from your town? What do you want from this community? And year after year, time after time, survey after survey, people want to maintain the rural character of the community that we live in, irrespective of what use is going on inside of the building. That location is not an ideal location for an industrial building of any type. It would be appropriate, in my opinion, to rezone the area away from industrial, just to be more consistent, as we have been doing throughout the town. I know that's been an ongoing project. So I just have to get that out of the way. I will tell you, I'm going to be driving out of my neighborhood that I've lived in for 20 years looking at that building, and it's going to bother me, and I just can't tell you how upset I would be if we approve that. I also went back and reviewed the meeting that was held on almost a year ago. And you know what, John, you were right at that meeting, because during that meeting you told us that we needed to have an overlay district. And you said it then, and I don't think we have voted it in since, but it is absolutely something that this town has to consider, because if we don't consider it now, what's happening at the end of my street is going to be happening around in other places potentially. So I do think we need to narrow down the locations where we're willing to entertain this type of business. I also would like to ask the selectmen, there was a conversation, I couldn't find the exact date, but it was my recollection that we were told we were going to be entering into 3 agreements, 3 community compact agreements. It's my understanding we've entered into 5. So I'd like to understand, what have we entered into with community compact so far? And because I'd like to go back and compare what's been approved both in Middleborough and in Taunton. Relative to population, Lakeville should certainly not have more than either one of those communities, irrespective of the tax benefits. Do we know how many we have approved right now for medical? Total in the town?
We've had, there's different numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We've had 8 people come before us.
Okay.
We have host community agreements with Tricone, Nature's Remedy, Bountiful Farms, to whether it's medical or whether it's recreational. And they're all different. And certainly we approved medical years ago. So we have host community agreements with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
3 dispensaries, John.
Excuse me?
3 dispensaries.
Yeah.
The rest are cultivation.
Right, they're all a little bit different between dispensaries, grow only, medical, then recreational, and then obviously grow facilities only. So we're dealing with a mixture of people. The retail facilities, I believe, would only be, for non-medical, is Nature's Remedy, which would be through a different company, in Monroe. So those would be the 2, we'll call it recreational retail facilities. The rest are either grow or
Manufacturing.
Or manufacturing and or medical.
So here's where I really want to see us put the brakes on this stuff, because if we were approving 5 or 6 different McDonald's facilities coming in, we'd all be up in arms, wanting to talk about local business and all this kind of stuff. I think that we are need to put the brakes on and watch this process unfold in the communities around us before we give away precious assets of land. I've been in asset management for most of my career. When you put up a building, it's a long-term prospect. You make an investment in a structure, and you hope that it's going to give you the return that you need. Non-conforming use on a building that isn't performing is a very expensive mistake, and you can see it in many communities that I drive around, and it has to do with poor land use, poor planning, and poor master planning, which is the reason I got involved with all this in the beginning. So, thank you.
Just one other thing is, there has been many discussions on limiting, whether it be retail or the number of host community agreements. We've never voted to do that. It's been discussed many, many times. I have to say that I was the most vocal against limiting it. And without getting into a long debate, I simply said if we talk to 10 people, I'd love to be able to pick the most successful ones and only allow them in town. But you can't really pick whether they're going to be successful or not be successful. They all come in with a story, but you don't really know who's going to go forward. I mean, we've had people early on that we gave letters of non-opposition to that have never done anything. They've never looked for land, they've never looked for buildings. So just because we give someone a non-opposition letter doesn't mean that they go forward. So we've had many discussions on it, but we've never limited it or tied it to, some towns tie it to the number of liquor licenses. We've not taken that approach. Certainly for those that went to town meeting, we have allowed the marijuana facilities to be located in industrial zones. And that was a vote taken by the town. I don't know, it was a 3/4 vote, I guess.
No, I was there.
To pass it. I forget
do
whether it
remember
was,
the vote. Yeah.
whatever the vote
Yeah.
was, it was 75-25 or whatever the number came out to be.
The issue is, John, though, if you sign these community compact agreements, then these people are grandfathered in, irrespective of whether we get an overlay district or not. Once they have that community compact agreement, we have them for at least 5 years, right?
Right, but they may never do anything. I'm not
doesn't
saying
matter.
they will or they
We've
won't.
entered into
Right.
an agreement. It's like signing a purchase and sale. It's binding.
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Emery Oral. I live on Rhode Island Road. And due respect to my neighbor from Johnson Drive, it's not in his backyard, it's in my backyard. I am the only direct abutter to this proposed structure. And frankly, I'm looking forward to seeing that lot cleaned up. Right now, it's hideous. It's one of the worst eyesores in town. The building they're proposing is neat with landscaping. You would never know what's going on inside. As they said, it's a closed business. If not for this meeting, you wouldn't even know what was in the building. It's not like a dispensary with traffic coming in and out. That's totally false. And I just want to state that I have no problem with it whatsoever. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the revenue for the town. And I think it's a good use of an industrial lot. That is an industrial lot. It was made industrial in the 70s, and that's what it is. I think we should use it to its utmost. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, Chuck Mayakovsky. I also live on Johnson Drive. And my biggest problem is the location. Industrial parks, all for it. You know, don't have a problem with what you're doing. But that neighborhood, you know, I disagree. I pull out of that street every day. The last thing I want to do is look at a marijuana facility, you know, coming out of my own street. We have a very nice neighborhood. All the homes are nice homes. And most of, if you look on 79, I don't see any other commercial buildings. There's LeBaron Hills, that's up the street, and there's Tree Farm. Tree Farm doesn't seem too commercial to me. I also agree with Barbara that it needs to be rezoned. Sell them as houses. Those lots will go like that in this town. I'm opposed to putting any kind of building right in front of where we come out of every day. Just doesn't look good.
I want to ask, what is the selectmen's motivation to even be open to more drugs and marijuana production in our town? The revenue is everything? You know, what is your motivation to condone or even think about voting in favor of something like this?
Well, there's lots of boards that will be involved in this, so it's not, the selectmen don't wave a magic wand.
I want to know your...
Mine is, a business is a business. Now, whether I entered into a making liquor or Philip Morris, a cigarette company, came to town, you know, I may feel strongly one way or another. I voted against marijuana in the state, but it's here. The state voted for it. The Lakeville citizens voted for it in industrial zones. So it isn't just, when I say it isn't just me, I'm for a business. I'm personally not against a grow facility. Whether it belongs at the corner of Crooked Lane and 79 is a different issue. But it's a legal business permitted in the town. So if they were coming and they were going to do a machine shop there, I'm not so sure a machine shop, a car parts place, not a little repair center, but a car manufacturer with big drill machines, punch presses, belongs there either. But if it is a legitimate permitted business in town, let the taxpayers, let the citizens get up and speak for it. Just because I don't like marijuana and I don't smoke marijuana, I'll be that guy, you know. I never did that. But I haven't, nor do I expect to. But people have a right in this state. They voted for it. I voted against it, so I'll tell you how I voted. To me, a business is a business. Leah can give, everyone has a different opinion. That the citizens of Lakeville the citizens of Massachusetts have spoken, the citizens of Lakeville have spoken. And it's come before us as a town petition also. I'm not justifying it. Whether they go there or not, they have a long road in front of them to get the process done. But a business is a business. If it was a machine shop, I'm not so sure it belongs there. I'd like to see nice houses there. I don't disagree with that. It's zoned industrial. I don't like the solar farm. We can bring back that too, but it's there. It was permitted. It's zoned for that. And unfortunately, to Barbara's point, we never did rezone that area. We thought that Crooked Lane would become an industrial zone. It started back as machine shops further down the road, and then there's a house in between, and then it's back to industrial. But that's all water over the dam. I know how it got created, but before Emery speaks, we can give our opinion,
Right.
but legal opinion's a legal opinion.
So for those of you who may not know, this is officially my third week as a Board of Selectmen, as a Selectman member. So clearly, the decisions that were made by the Selectmen before that, I was not part of. I'll say this. I did a lot of soul searching before I went out with those nomination papers. And let me tell you, I didn't put my papers in first, but I got them in, within a reasonable amount of time, and I ran unopposed. So, no one's really, chomping at the bit to hop into the hot seat up here. So, because these questions are extremely difficult. They're difficult from a personal level. They're difficult on a financial level because we are responsible for the town, paying the bills for the town, and we don't have a lot of commercial buildings. The bulk of our taxes are paid by residents. So it's not an easy decision. I've known you, Mr. Bosse, for years, and I just want everyone to know that it is not an easy decision to be sitting here. But someone has to do it. Last year, some folks in town, they decided to try to, bring to town floor a petition to go from 3 to 5 selectmen so that there could be more debate, more conversation. Didn't pass. Clearly, there's not a whole lot of people running and waiting in line to become a selectman. So I would hope that everyone would give us the, a little bit of consideration for the difficulty of the decision. And I don't think any selectman that sat on the board before I got here or that's sitting on the board now, I've known John for a long time. I don't think anyone takes these decisions lightly either. I really don't. All I know is, we're projected to have a shortfall in our school budget. Who wants to be the one to tell the schools that they don't have enough money? I don't know who was here earlier. Look at the amount of money. We're looking at $4 million to pave some roads. It's not easy. And my plan is to look at each one of these things on an individual basis and try to make a decision. I'm not going to have a general policy going forward that says, yes, I'm going to approve everything, or no, I'm not. I really think that, you have to look at everything and each individual case and just not make blanket decisions. That's the best I can do.
Well, in response to you, John, a machine shop would be a good moral business. This is an immoral business.
I don't, Selectmen, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Right.
It's not your responsibility to make moral decisions.
That debate can be on the town floor. I get that.
Yeah, that's not your responsibility.
Right. Go ahead with whatever point you were going to make.
This property was zoned industrial in the 70s. At that time, you could build anything on industrial property. Businesses, houses, or industry. Now, the law has been changed by the town, so now it's only industry. So, these folks who have inherited the property that's been in the family for generations want to do a build-out on their industrial property. Johnson Drive is a new development. People have moved in there from away. We've been there forever. They will not see the facility when they pull out of Johnson Drive unless I cut down my pine grove, because that blocks it. It'll totally block it. And I think they're wrong. I think you shouldn't make a decision on morals, and that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you.
Anyone else want to speak to it? Mr. Sure.
I ran out to come to this meeting, so I'm going to say something. Maria Martin, Cedar Drive. I'm glad I came because there was a couple of things that I was confused about. And one of was I was given the impression, maybe it was just me, that the marijuana facilities would all be in the industrial parks, not just all industrial zones. The other thing is, and I want to check on this, you people give the special permits for the marijuana facilities, right? The dispensaries? They have to get a special permit
Well,
from you.
they have to get a host community agreement
Right.
from the select.
They can't just come in and build.
They cannot come in without a host community agreement from the select.
Okay, and then talking about the master plan, I've been going to the community meetings of the master plan, and no one on in those committees have said they want more marijuana facilities. They've talked about other kinds of businesses, like Trader Joe's and things like that. Matter of fact, Trader Joe's comes up every single time. So I'm just curious why we're bringing our revenue. We're doing marijuana so much. I understand it'll bring in the revenue, and I understand we need the revenue. I have no doubts about that. But it seems to me you keep talking about what the town wants. I think when you go to those master plan committees, this isn't where our town wants to go. It does want to stay rural, even though we're not rural. We haven't been rural in years, but they want that rural feel. So that is my, and I live nowhere near that. But, and I don't think they could ever build one near my house. But still, I just think if most of the neighbors don't want it, then I'm opposed to it. I understand the other neighbor thinks it's fine. And I know it's your decision, but I'm just thinking, if you go to a master plan, you finish your master plan, then find out where you're going to put these dispensaries. Because your master plan, the community does not seem to be, this is the way they want their business to grow.
Certainly that debate was at the last couple or more town meetings, certainly the last town meeting. I'm not justifying it, but the movement was to ban marijuana in the town. That failed.
Oh, I know it did.
On town floor.
I was there.
So you can go to another committee where they may want it, but the taxpayers spoke at the town. That's where they speak, that's where they vote. They voted for it. You could have had more open space people come. I'm not saying how to do it. People pack meetings, don't pack meetings.
Exactly.
You've been there, you've been around town long enough. If you want a school budget, pack it with a bunch of school people. So it's just town politics. It wasn't packed. As a matter of fact, I thought it could have had a pretty good chance of failing, but it didn't. It
didn't fail.
It passed overwhelmingly. But
when you
having said that, the town floor is where that vote is taken,
Right.
not at the open space. Open space doesn't necessarily.
No, master
vote
plan,
for
not
the
open
town.
space, master
Right,
plan.
master
The
plan.
plan we're trying to make for Lakeville, and as you mentioned, the plan was made. It was made 20 years ago, and we haven't been following that plan, and now we're making a new one. And it seems like we're shooting. We shouldn't be looking, we should be looking for businesses that the town actually wants in it. And you know what, I will say one thing, when I go to the master plan for the community, there is more of a larger segment of the town than town meetings. Because unfortunately, town meetings, it's basically people who've been there for years.
The seniors don't go to the town meeting either. They don't drive at night, so
You
they
got
don't
some
go.
seniors. You've got more
they
people
go.
about my age in there. So it's like,
You're young.
you turn around and you
You're
look
young.
around and you see who it is. I just think you need to take the whole scope of the town, and I think you have the responsibility for the special permit. I'm not arguing with you about that. I'm just saying this is what I've seen myself talking to people in the community. That's all. Okay?
Mr. Knox.
How many dispensaries are open, or even grow facilities are open and running in town right now?
None.
Keep it that way.
How many people have come before you, filled out the proper amount of paperwork to get a host agreement that you've said no to?
That we've said no to?
Yeah.
Probably 2 or 3 that we've said no to. Probably. They were early on.
Yeah.
They were just drug people that wanted to open a facility. So
We signed 6 host community agreements.
that's who they were. So we traditionally, if they come, not with a business, if they come with professional people that have been in the business, we most likely have given them a
You've said yes
host
to
community
everybody.
agreement.
You've said yes to everybody that's a legitimate organization.
That's a legitimate business, yeah.
Don't you think we should see if one or two open, how it goes, before we keep signing these host
I'd
agreements?
love to, but I couldn't tell you when they're gonna open. There's only two people.
But you can still stop
There's
signing
only
host
two-
agreements until we see how it works.
What if they never open?
Stop signing
What if
them.
they never open?
Stop making host agreements. Let some open and we see how it works. Don't you think it's irresponsible to have 10 host agreements before one even opens? We don't know how it's going to function in town. I think that's irresponsible. I think you should let some open. Maybe we have a 6-month time period, we see how they function, and then the town react. Maybe then we say, we stop opening because it's fine, it's enough.
I was actually hoping that would happen. I can't believe that these facilities have taken
All you need to do is stop saying yes to them then. Then it will happen. Someday they'll open.
Maybe.
We don't need to keep signing the agreements before they open. I think that's responsible to say, we'll see how these 6 go. And then maybe after a year, then we consider signing some more. I think that's fair.
Anyone else? And then we'll see if anyone else has new news.
Hi, Martha Schroeder, and this may seem kind of irrelevant because it has nothing to do with marijuana.
Uh-oh. We're talking marijuana, so give us a minute, that's it.
We'll make it quick. I just wanted to make sure that it was on record that the Open Space Committee, quite some time ago, recommended that the entire Oral Farm be something that the town considered purchasing if it came out of Chapter 61. I realize that that rural atmosphere is an extremely expensive thing, and possibly the town cannot afford it. But the town does need to realize that that's the type of decisions that we are making. We cannot afford rural character.
And that coming out of Chapter 61A is later in the agenda, too, which is a different subject and a different
So I should
item
have
on the
waited.
agenda. So number 11, under old business.
And John, this parcel isn't under 61A.
Oh,
That corner
I'm
parcel.
not even getting, right, I'm not getting into zone at this particular one.
You know, you mentioned that you said no to people that were just drug people that come in and look, but these are drug people that are looking to open another place.
That could be. That could be. They have a business plan, they have assets, they have people that have done it before in other areas. I'm not justifying them. The town has voted it many times. I voted against it in the state. But that isn't my purview. If they wanted to do a car sheet metal stamping place, I most likely would approve it. I voted for a solar farm. That's the last thing in the world I ever wanted there. So there you go. It was allowed. Anything else? Good. Last one, maybe.
Sure. Hi, Carrie Bogdan.
We're not rushing. We're not rushing you.
I can make it
No,
super quick.
No, you don't have to make it quick.
No.
As long as you're talking marijuana.
Okay, your name again? Carrie Bogdan.
C-A-R...
No, Kerry.
And last name?
Bogdan.
Thank you.
So I also live with these folks on Johnson Drive. I moved to Lakeville 2 years ago. Grew up in Middleborough. Moved back here. I picked Lakeville specifically for my family. For my 2 young kids, I picked Johnson Drive because it has that rural characteristic. I can open the garage door and tell them, pedal off on your bikes, and I don't have a concern that something bad's going to happen to them. I'm going to respectfully disagree with Mr. Orrell, who's not in the room anymore, that there's not going to be increased traffic. As Jeff already said, pick the time of day that the train gets out and you can't get out of our street. I take the commuter rail to Boston. I follow cars and cars up Route 79. We already hassle and deal with that. And now we want to talk about this giant manufacturing facility, if you will, that even if it's not a dispensary, we're going to have all these workers there who are trying to get out onto Route 79. I do think, I understand the dilemma that we can't afford to be a rural community anymore, but I think that when we're making these decisions, we need to take into account where we're locating these type of businesses and take into account the residents that live in these residential areas, even if there's an oddball industrial lot zoned there, This is going to negatively impact the people who chose to spend $500,000, $600,000 to raise their families in these residential areas. The daycare, it should be taken into consideration. You know, I'm sorry if technically by the law, it's 500 feet and they're 510 feet. It should be taken into consideration. It's a risk. And I think if you did a poll of the town, it's not just going to be the people on Johnson Drive that are upset about this. That's my piece.
John, say one last thing. Make it like 5 to 10 seconds, 10 seconds.
10 seconds, yeah, you're up. Go ahead. Last one, and then I have a couple of questions for Victor to address number of employees.
I just want to point out, I've been in the mortgage business for almost 30 years, and again, putting any kind of a building there is going to affect our property values as well. You know, if we can have it rezoned, then the O'Reillys can sell lots, build houses, town gets a tax base from those houses. You know, the implications on our street alone, putting a commercial building there, are going to be quite significant. I estimate 50 to 70,000 just for us. That's a lot of money. So, thank you.
Victor, I don't know if I'm not asking that you answer some of the questions that were posed, but tell me about the number of employees that you would expect and whether they would be spaced over a 24-hour period, whether you have 2 shifts, 3 shifts. Just tell us about the people which may lead to some traffic issues, or not lead to traffic issues.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't have a hard number of a top. I would say at full build out, you're talking maybe 50 to 60 spread out 24/7. So the facility would have 3 shifts. So you would have overnight staff. So at any given moment, you know, middle of the day staff is 25.
Anyone, if no one else has any questions, I want to thank you for your...
Can I just ask a quick question?
Sure, no, go right ahead.
When things grow, they don't make a whole lot of noise, but do other pieces of equipment, any anticipated noise to come from the facility, compressors, I don't know,
Carbon filter fans.
yeah, fans?
I mean, I guess I'll turn to these guys. I mean, there is the HVAC, which has a compressor or a chiller outside. The extraction of compressors are indoors, so I would say no.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah, for the size of the facility, it's minimal noise.
Okay.
Most definitely compared to pretty much every other type of manufacturing out there, yeah.
Okay.
You know, you just got 50, 60 cars on top of it that make noise, and the trucks going in and out. Sorry.
Okay. Right, not from the audience, from the table. Okay. Just thank you for your presentation. I think we're...
When will this be voted on, by the way?
Excuse me?
When is this going to be voted on?
When they ask further for a host community agreement and other things, and we'll start that process. So they'll be on another agenda, I'm assuming.
You can vote tonight whether or not you want to enter into.
Well, we could.
You could table it and take it under
We haven't
advisement.
been asked tonight, have the town attorneys here too. Usually we have them here for marijuana hearings.
Okay, so we should ask to come back for another agenda meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
May I ask a request for the people that are at home watching the video? Normally they show up and there's like a board that shows the site plan so that people get an idea of the visual of what the property will look like. Do you have anything like that in the packet?
Not really. Whatever they've given us is public record, but it's not of any size that anyone could, I couldn't hold it up and
Camera can't see it.
show you.
It's in your handout.
Yeah, but they can request that. One could be available. I don't happen to have one that I could show the public on camera. It's all small scale.
That's okay,
Wouldn't see
I have
anything.
Facebook, don't worry about it.
Wouldn't see anything. Right. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Nancy.
In the process, in the back row.
All right. Okay. Welcome myself back to the meeting. So just because we have cross law here, I want to, if you guys are okay with kind of taking this out of the order, and we can talk about, and we have Nate here too, so we can revisit the request from Cross Lodge Solar LLC to remove 2 properties from Chapter 61A. So we'll have that conversation now. We had discussed this on our meeting on Friday, where we knew that Nate wasn't available on Friday, but what we wanted to do is really have a conversation about what was happening with this property. I know that as it was voted on last year by the board to allow for a portion of one of the properties to be removed from 61A. I know that we had talked with Open Space, and Open Space had expressed, as they had a while ago, their interest in not waiving the right of first refusal and trying to determine if there was a way to purchase the property. That failed really through, I should say, it was approved through the Board of Selectmen to move the property out of 61A. I think Nate can probably color the conversation a little bit more because it's a portion of the property, from what I understand, that was supposedly removed from 61A. We now have the solar field on it. We don't have a pilot agreement that has been signed. We also don't have any rollback taxes that have been paid on it. From what I understand, there was never a bill that was sent, but there were conversations between the assessor's office and with you and phone calls back and forth that never got returned. So pretty much we're in a situation where we have a previous request to remove from 61A that would have resulted in rollback taxes, that would have also resulted in what we voted on town meeting to allow us to enter into a pilot agreement. None of that has happened right now, and now we have a request in front of us for 2 parcels. Now the entirety of the first parcel, of which a portion of it had already been removed from 61A but not kind of paid for, and then the second piece, which is across the street, which is underlying residential, to be removed from 61A. So we have a whole bunch of stuff that we need to talk about to try to get to the bottom of exactly what is happening, why it's happening, what we need to do with regard to rollback taxes and things like that. And so I think, Nate, if you want to, have anything to say, I don't know when you want to speak to it. I'm not sure when, Christian, you want to speak to it, but that's kind of the overview from what I have in front of me, and that's the conversation we're going to be talking about today. And again, to reiterate, I know, and thank you, Mike, for coming up earlier, this has been a property that Open Space has been requesting in the past to be able to at least explore the right for the town to purchase it. So.
No, I've been in and out of this conversation. I haven't been directly involved with the assessors. I'd like to hear what Mr. Lemania has to say, and then I can address any questions of the
Perfect. Thank you.
Christian Loranger from Crosslaw Solar and Crosslaw Development tonight. So I quickly, after Easter, watched your video from Friday, and I tried to touch on some of the subjects that came up in a quick note that went out today. So in my experience in other energy projects that I've done in the past, the pilot program is really negotiated on the town's behalf, and they reach out to us and let us know when they'd like us to come to the table. I think in the case of Lakeville, we have been going back and forth, not by phone, but by email, in that the last email that I had previous to 3/26 was that the town was kind of pending that pilot program, not the rollback taxes yet, but the pilot program is going to be handed off to kind of an underling of the assessor's department or a subcontracted assessor. I made contact with her. We were supposedly moving forward. Next thing I know, I get an email on 3/26 saying that I've decided that I'm going to take care of the solar pilot agreement on my own. And then we also have the whole matter of the tax rollback payment. We're ready to make that tax rollback payment whenever it's billed to us. But we are completely up to snuff on all of our taxes. We have not received anything, and we have not delayed the pilot program in any way, shape, or form. So we are ready to pay our taxes. We're ready to negotiate the pilot program. But we have been down to town hall, to the assessor's office, maybe 3 or 4 times now, and this is where we're at. So it's not moving ahead, but we're ready to move it ahead whenever you folks tell us it's go time.
Okay. Yeah, I think,
But, and as far as phone calls go, there were no phone calls back and forth. Maybe twice I've talked on the phone. Everything's been done via email.
okay. Yeah, so, you know, I guess what I would say is that when we are looking at the potential for these 2 parcels to be removed from 61A, we know the rollback tax is approximately $65,000.
For both sides.
For both sides, right. And so I think that certainly there's kind of an issue because a portion of it's already been released, that, you know, whether it's an administrative issue on our part from not assessing the rollback taxes at that moment. I'm not sure exactly what, because I'm not an assessor, so I don't know, and Harold couldn't be here tonight, is that,
I don't think it's out of 61A yet because you haven't received the money. In my experience, and I've pulled land out of 61A in Lakeville before, that really until the money is paid, you're not out of 61A. So that project is still under 61A.
Yeah, but we have a solar farm on it now. So now we're in an issue where, okay, if it wasn't out of 61A, now it's been treated as if it were, and now you've got a solar farm on it. So now therein lies the rub in terms of, now we have an issue, but previously the request was only for, what, 9 acres out of the 22 acre or something?
10.68 acres for the solar project.
Was just that portion to be removed from
That's correct.
61A. And now you're requesting the entire parcel.
That's correct. The remaining of the 23 acres, if you will.
Okay.
And then across the street, we're asking to have that removed for sale and utterly change of use, but for a sale as well. As we've been going through the process of developing that land. And we have 2 of the properties, the bookends, if you will, of 5 lots that have been placed under agreement.
And that's a 10-acre parcel we have?
I believe it's 11 acres total. One of the lots has already been subdivided off. It's still under 61A. And the other chunk of land will be 4 subdivided lots, and that is also under 61A.
Okay.
So it's 2 parcels, if you will. One regular buildable house lot at 1 acre and 1.6 acres, I believe.
Yep.
And then the remainder of the land. And that's what we're requesting to take out of 61A. And I believe those calculations for the rollback have already been done.
Yes.
Rita?
Yep.
So that number looks like it will be able to be taken care of right away.
Okay.
So if I may, Madam Chair, my question is, typically when the right of first refusal, we need to know how much would they sell it to the town for. And usually it's the whole parcel of land, and we have a bona fide purchase and sales agreement. So if the other 2 lots have been sold, you know, we don't know what amount they would want to sell it to the town.
I mean, one of the issues too that we had with what turned into the solar field was that you weren't selling it. So that was another issue where we kind of looked at it and we said, well, we don't have a bona fide purchase and sale agreement because you wouldn't be actually selling the property.
Correct.
It would probably be just an assessment that would need to be done on the value of the land. That would be the amount that the town then could bring forward to purchase under the right of first refusal.
Correct.
So I think, I would imagine it would be a similar circumstance other than unless you have, you know, a purchase and sale that would delineate the amount of the land versus the residential cost, which is not, you know, is probably not what you have. You probably have a residential construction cost when we see what the amounts are for $699,000 or $800-something thousand is not going to be just for the land.
That's correct.
So that's the piece where if we were to really evaluate this for open space, that if open space wanted to try to muster together the funds to be able to purchase the land, then the house lots, essentially the entire parcel, would need to be valued in order for the town. And I think we had talked about that we could do our own valuation. Nate, I don't know if you can, so we can do an appraisal if the town chooses to do so to determine whether or not we would want to purchase it.
That's correct. There's a whole lengthy series of hurdles that you can keep going down after that for quite a while. It can go on for, I know it's 180 days right out of the gate.
120.
120 days. We'd rather not have that happen. So if it is something, I guess if it is something that the town wishes to purchase, we should certainly sit down and have a discussion about that. If it's not, as is usually the case when we're pulling things out of 61A, towns usually don't want to spend the money to buy the land.
Yeah, I mean, the issue was, at the last time when we pulled out the portion, I mean, I know that I spoke on behalf of Open Space, and I know Patrick Marshall was here too, because certainly it was a property that was something on the rolls that Open Space had desired to purchase. So I think, I mean, the issue, lo and behold, of course, is now we've got a solar field on it. So I don't know how that even would work with regard to the remaining land around it, which would, I guess, be available for the town to potentially purchase. I don't, we'd have to get the attorneys involved, I think, with regard to what that would look like,
Right.
To determine what would be valued for the town to determine if they wanted to purchase it.
I will tell you this, and this may help a little bit, is that when I was brought in, it is, Scott's desire and Craig's desire to hold on to as much land as can be held on. So we kind of took the solar portion of that field and said, well, listen, we'll put a solar project on it, we'll develop it, that'll bring in some revenue, and it lasts for 20 years. And at the end of 20 years, it's dismantled, and we're back to having the field again. So I think in a way, they're really trying to hold on to that land. They don't want to sell all the land. They'd like to hold on to that piece if they can. So I believe you're going to find that that's going to stay in open space one way or another. After the 20-year lease agreement is up, it's going to be back into open space. As far as the residential side goes, that is something that they're willing, they'd like to part with and develop and move on from. There are some outstanding debts to the state that I've included in your booklet that, some heavy bills that need to be paid. And that's a part of the reason for developing the land or selling it. But it was always kind of I don't want to say short term because 20 years is a long time, but to put the solar project on that land was kind of, it's going to allow us to hold on to the land for the long term, which is the goal that they wanted to achieve. I will also say that if you've been up Crooked Lane, we've brought in 150 trees that were running all the way up Crooked Lane. We have another couple truckloads coming in tomorrow morning where the solar project is going to be completely blocked out. And that was also the plan for the cannabis grow house on the corner. We would bring in large-scale trees, 16 to 18 foot right out of the gate, ball-to-ball,
Can I
plant them
ask a
and block
stupid
everything out.
question?
Sure.
Do trees block the sun for the solar field?
They do.
I mean, I know that sounds kind of silly, but.
So you gotta stay on top of that. So we've got about an 8-foot tree that we can put in right now, and then that's gonna have to be capped at that 8 foot. But we wanna block it out, especially, selling houses across the street. So that'll have to be kept under control.
All right, so at least I didn't fail basic
Botany.
photosynthesis 101.
Perfect.
Okay. Do you guys have any questions? Should we have Nate kind of address any, other,
I mean, I
comments,
can address
concerns?
a couple of quick things. I mean, what we got to remember is when we convert the use on that original 10.68 acres, that wasn't allowing for property sale or anything else. We decided not to exercise our right of first refusal based on that transition of use. That'll only affect that initial 10.68 acres. If they take out the remainder, we could exercise our right of first refusal, but it would only be specific to the land that was being taken out at that time. I personally see that somewhat problematic, only because, the property really would then not be whole. There's a strip that goes around the entire solar fields. There's access to the solar panels, but there's not really adequate frontage. So I think it would be a difficult thing to take that, the additional property off of that and exercise our right of first refusal on that purchase. Plus, it's all wetland, or 90% of what's left is wetland. So Chris mentioned too that the property's still under 61A. It'll remain under 61A, or the option to purchase will remain in effect for 1 year after it comes out of 61A, in the event that it's changed to a use other than solar or property transfer. So the only thing that is allowed right now on that original 10.68 acres is to use it for solar instead of agriculture.
So what would that do with the rest of that property being removed from 61A?
The rest of the, once the rest of the property is removed from 61A, that'll add that to the rollback taxes, and the entire property will be taken out. And I'm not sure if the request is to change to a specific use or just any other use. So if it's a broad request to change from an agricultural use to any other legal use, then that would kind of leave the door open to anything that you decided to do there.
That would be zoned industrial.
It would be zoned industrial, which is probably a better way to do it.
You'd almost be back to like me coming in before the solar project was built and pulling it out of 61A for the first time. Right? You'd maintain that right.
Okay.
Could I ask for clarification?
Yeah.
Oh, I heard, it seems to me I heard you saying two things. First of all, you said because the solar thing was there, that took a chunk out of the property, therefore it was no longer whole. But then you said that that portion of the property that is now solar, there would be an opportunity 20 years from now.
Oh, no, only if it was sold. Oh, so.
But it could be sold.
Yeah, so I suppose it probably could. So the decision not to exercise the right of first refusal was relative to a change of use from agricultural to what was requested to be solar use.
So, but if they wanted to do something else with it besides solar, there would be another opportunity.
I think it's within 1 year. So I'm not an attorney, so I'm not 100% sure of the time frame on that, but I believe it's 1 year. So any
1 year
so
from the change
from when it's
of use.
taken out of 61A. No, so once the rollback taxes are paid, it comes out of 61A and they start paying their normal tax rate. So what'll happen is from 1 year after that time, if they change the use again or transfer the property, I believe we would be offered the right of first refusal.
If it helps clarify it, that property really would not be sold in the next 20 years. The reason for that is because when we sold the project, it goes along with a $1 a year lease, where they pay all the expenses, yet it's only $1 a year that anyone would be receiving, so no one would be purchasing the property. And again, it's not our intention, it's our intention to hold on to that property.
And at the end of the 10 years, it's just an industrial piece of property. They can do what they want to with it.
That's
If
correct.
they decide they want to take it
20
somewhere,
years.
it's gone.
Did you say it was wetlands there too? Is there some kind of protection for the wetland over there? I thought I heard you say wetlands.
Yeah, a majority of the property that's remaining on the north side of Crooked Lane is a significant portion of wetland. And I don't know the percentage, but I would estimate somewhere between 75 to 80%.
So they can't just do anything there, there's wetlands there.
You couldn't do anything.
They probably couldn't do anything.
Okay.
But the solar, it isn't wet where the solar is, and it isn't wet where they're considering other uses.
The residential houses on the south side is not wet out there.
So there's nothing not coming out of 61A except the peripheral, or even the peripheral comes out?
The peripheral is what we're discussing, taking out of 61A tonight.
The rest of the entire property will be coming
Which
out
was
of 61A with this
10,
proposal.
including wetlands.
Including
The wetlands comes out. Yeah, no, okay. So everything comes out.
The entire 20, there's 23 acres
Yeah.
over there, the entire 23 would be out.
Yeah.
Subsequent to us paying the
Yeah.
rollback taxes on the original 10.26.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think, Mike, and I don't know if you want to address this with regard to open space, but with those properties, I mean, if you've heard on the industrial side, we have two different properties. I mean, is there something that you want to, I think in general, I'm always in favor of taking the time to allow for the open space committee to see what they may be willing to do or what they want to do with the land. It's the same stance I had when this came in front of us last year too, that, I'm in favor of, not rushing this and allowing the town to have an opportunity to determine whether or not they want to purchase it.
You know, the one thing that's been missing from this meeting is graphics, to see the land, to see what part is where, just the placement of all of this. I mean, I just, in my memory, I remember these great big green blocks, but I know those great big green blocks have been kind of messed up a bit now, so I'm not, I'm not speaking, by the way, from the Open Space Committee.
No, I know.
I'm speaking as an individual.
Exactly.
Right here. But the Open Space Committee does meet Wednesday night.
This Wednesday? Okay.
It's not on our agenda, but I hopefully we can discuss it anyway as an unexpected new item. Would you give us at least until that meeting to be able to?
Yeah, I'm not calling a meeting, for tomorrow night. Oh, we already have one. Yeah, I said, I'm not going to call a meeting for tomorrow night, although we already have one.
No, I mean, from meeting Wednesday.
Yeah. So, I mean.
I think, Mike, from a graphic point of view, is every open.
I'm letting people talk.
Right. No, from a graphic point of view, all the open land on both sides of the street is coming out of 61A.
Yeah.
So as far as the visual, everything on both sides comes out.
That's right.
That's all. It's a simple
No,
thing.
but some of it is already out.
Where the solar farm is out.
Inside the fence.
Yeah, inside the fence.
Yeah, I'd like to also make sure that legal counsel has a chance to kind of look at the ramifications of what any of this looks like, considering the fact that we have a lot of moving parts and things like that before we do anything with it. So I'm happy to table this, again, to, our next regularly scheduled meeting. And that would be, I think, in
May 6th.
May 6th.
Right, but has Chris done a formal request to take it out of 61A?
That's
Yeah.
what-
So
that
we
was
have
what-
X number of days to look at that. And I think the only one we're looking for is something from open space.
Yeah, and I think legal counsel too, just to make sure that, we understand what the ramifications are with what's happened so far with it and what would be happening.
Okay, yeah.
And planning board,
If you
I
want.
sent
Oh,
their
and planning
comments
board
to you.
sent planning board also sent a letter as well, so can give them an opportunity to kind of meet and talk about it too.
Right, but from a legal perspective, if you're questioning the rollback of taxes, they can look at what Herald's done.
Yeah, it's not that, it's the unique situation of, it's, I guess, still technically agricultural.
It's still in.
Well, that's because it
there's a
never got
solar field,
recorded, or
right.
taxes were never paid, but
So,
it didn't get recorded, that's why it's still under 61A.
right.
And as Chris perhaps said, is until money transfers, you don't record the passing. But
Yeah, I mean-
I don't object if you want someone else to look at it,
Yeah, I'm good with
but
table.
tell
I don't
them
know.
what they're looking at.
At least till our next meeting. Good with that?
Yeah, because nothing's been paid on the solar panels either, because there's no pilot agreement, but we also didn't just send a personal property tax bill either.
They're going to have an omitted assessment.
Yeah, so let's get that all squared away
Yeah, so there's
before we
a lot
do
of-
anything
you're right,
with
there is
this.
a lot of
And
moving
we can
parts here.
consider this again, and we'll have you back at that meeting if you want to come back.
Sure. We definitely
What's your
would.
next
We definitely
scheduled
would.
meeting?
May 6th.
Which is,
2 weeks from
2 weeks.
tonight.
2 weeks.
All right, great.
Any other questions?
No, thank you. All right, so let's go back to where,
We
wow.
do number 8 with Nate, the
Yep,
quotes.
Nate, let's do number 8 while you're here. So, agenda item number 8 is to review the invitations to quote for the drainage projects at the Ted Williams Camp Soccer Field parking lot and the Karate Studio parking lot. So, we received a number of bids for the soccer field parking lot and the Karate Studio parking lot, which were due on April 18th. And we had voted previously that on our March 11th meeting to approve $30,000 for the soccer field parking lot from the police station funding. And the park commission was going to use $45,000 of their retained earnings for the Karate Studio parking lot. But all bids came in much higher than all of those quotes. So, Nate, I know you had some information to share with us.
Well, really not much information more than what you already have. Clearly this is a prime example of what we're dealing with when we get into, public sector works and prevailing rates and so on and so forth. So it would be my recommendation to the Board of Selectmen this evening to decline all these bids and close this out.
So moved.
So moved. I was thinking that.
You want to do it, and then I'll.
Yeah, I make a
I'll
motion
second
that
it.
we decline all these bids
All right.
indefinitely. I don't know.
Yeah, so I seconded that. Any discussion?
Yeah. The 30,000 for the soccer field, I get that we talked about that. The park commission is using 45,000 for the retained earnings for the karate studio parking lot. I actually thought they were using what was left in the road tarring from 18 to Precinct Street. I thought there was available funds in that, and that's what they were going to use. No.
There's 20,000 left in the paving, out of the 135.
Yeah.
That once the drainage is fixed, we'll use the remaining 20 to pave the parking lot.
Okay.
The drainage was separate.
Right, and there's no money to do that because the lowest bid is
Yeah.
83,000.
Yep. Great.
Right, so that doesn't get done. And the same thing with the soccer is, I don't know that I wouldn't want to just pull back the $30,000 too. Or does that go into the abyss? Where does the 30,000
Look, that
end
was
up
in-
if we just table everything?
Well,
Don't do it.
That's the police station.
It just back to, it
Yeah.
stays in the police station. Okay, that's fine. Perfect.
All right, excellent. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then the AV under old business.
Oh, yeah. Let's go back to the AV proposal for the equipment for the new police station. I'm so glad we moved like 10 items to Friday's meeting.
Yeah.
No one told me I was supposed to bring a sleeping bag.
Yeah, exactly. Extra food provisions and everything else. All right, so we had a proposal for AV equipment for the new police station that totaled $117,000 or so.
Yes. And we have 25,000 budgeted.
And we have $25,000 budgeted. So, Nate, I don't know if you want to talk at all about it, but the committee brought in the consultant, determined this is what they wanted. It includes smart boards and everything like that. I think our original, sticker shock was evident in terms of what, we were looking at with regard to that quote. But then it was determined that originally the purpose of that room was not necessarily what it is intended to be used for now. And so that was why the AV quote originally was so low, probably was including a couple projectors and television sets, and now it's a full-blown AV system that will be available with smart boards, training, room materials, and things like that. So that's the increase on it, so.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly it. It started out as just a training room for the police officers. We just got some, first stage budgetary numbers, and it kind of transitioned, because we knew we were going to do a meeting room anyway, but, we started looking at it as an emergency command center, and just everything went in. Frank worked closely with the AV consultant. He was very satisfied where we ended up. We looked at other police stations that have spent double that. So both our designer and owner's project manager felt that this was a fiscally responsible scope of work that we ended up coming up with. So the building committee did support and vote recommendation on this.
Okay. So if we vote on this, it's again coming out of contingencies. It's not a change order on construction. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the addition of the AV equipment to the new police station.
And to take from contingency.
To take from contingency.
For
We'll discuss it.
17,000.
The 117.
Yeah, add the amount, yeah.
Yeah, well.
Well, it would actually be
We'll discuss it,
92,322.30, because we have 25,000
So it'll be
in the budget.
92,000 extra.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll make that motion.
Okay, I'll second it.
And let's discuss. Yep. More to go through.
Is this it?
Yeah, we'll be back after more money next week, so 2 weeks, so no, it's not it. It's it for the night.
I can't imagine anything else. We got smart boards, we got this, we got all kinds of cool stuff going on
Wait till
here.
they break.
You have to stop when you spend the next $1 million,
Well,
then
is
the
there
money's all gone.
warranties and everything included? I mean,
I know that the police chief and Ryan Maltese, who's their kind of IT guru, worked closely with this company to get the best they could and still, like I said, be fiscally responsible. So for that space, I guess the answer would be yes.
I mean, I don't really know anything about the footprint, really. Is the smaller than this, half the size of this?
No, it's a little bit bigger than this.
A little bit bigger than this? Okay.
I think 55-person seating capacity, somewhere in that vicinity.
Okay.
Might not be big enough to accommodate all of the people that come to our Board of Selectmen meetings.
Tonight it was, maybe. We needed more chairs.
All right, so any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Excellent. Let's go back to agenda item number 7. Thanks, Nate. Thank you,
You're free to
Nate. You're
go.
free.
Thank you for coming
We're going
back.
to stay around to review and vote on the special town meeting warrant articles and to vote to sign the special town meeting warrant for June 3rd, 2019. So this is our first piece. So we have, town council has not reviewed the articles, so we may have some minor revisions before it's ready for us to sign. And Article 3 can't be completed until we vote on the capital requests. So the articles are Articles 1 through 3?
5.
1 through 5 on the special.
I can skip through them real quick.
Sure, go for it. 2 seconds.
Okay, Article 1 is for an unpaid bill for Middleborough Gagne from the storm. Article 2 will be all of our transfers end of year for the different amounts, which I'll pass out tomorrow night at the budget meeting where I am right now. Article 3, again, is when we vote on capital projects tomorrow night. And Article 4, I'm going to leave on the warrant. I just can't get a clear answer. I'm still waiting about the special revenue account for PEG access. We can always pull it from town meeting. And Article 5 is the revised, the amendments to the zoning bylaw regarding marijuana uses.
All right. Great. So, that being said, I will make a motion to put the following articles numbered 1 through 5 in the special town meeting warrants.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I will also make a motion to sign the special town meeting warrant for June 3rd, 2019, subject to review by town council.
So it's not in the signed folder yet. Once we finish it, I'll put it.
All right, so I made that motion. Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Review and vote on the annual town meeting warrant articles and vote to sign the warrant for June 3rd, 2019. So we have the preliminary draft of the annual town meeting warrant. So again, town council's not reviewed the articles, so they may change slightly. Again, Article 5 can't be completed until we determine the capital requests on Tuesday night. There are 12 articles. Rita, go for it.
Okay, this is the shortest annual town meeting I've done in 21 years. But we have combined all of our school articles into Article 1, which is our omnibus budget. Article 2 is for the park enterprise budget. Article 3 is for the landfill budget. Article 4 is to appropriate $20,000 for contractual agreements for when employees retire. Article 5 is the capital. I started listing from old items. There's about $202,000, and then depending on what you approve, whether or not we have to borrow, and if you're going to use any stabilization capital project money. Article 6 is the herring fishing request for $5,000. Article 7 is we'll have to come up with the sum of money for all of the easements and takings on Rhode Island Road. Article 8 is for the road bond. And town council did, that would be subject to a debt exclusion vote. Article 9 is to amend the Old Colony Regional School District Agreement. Article 10 is, I haven't got the final wording from council on the temporary licenses. Article 11, I don't have town council's review for the residential site plan review, increasing it to an acre. And Article 12 is to accept Setauket Trail.
All right, so I'll make a motion to put the following articles, Articles 1 through 12 on the annual town meeting warrant.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and I will make a motion to sign the annual town meeting warrant for June 3rd, 2019, subject to town council review. Do I have a second?
Oh, second. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All right, agenda item number 9, review and vote to sign the affordable housing restriction agreements for Nemasket River Landing LLC and Riverside Lakeville LLC, the residences at Nemasket River. So we have copies of the affordable housing restriction agreement that Bob Belushi's asked us to sign for his 40R development projects on Riverside Drive. Did these get put through town council? Did they do
It's
that?
through DHCD.
So DHCD.
It's their
So it's just
requirement.
their requirement, but this is their
Yes.
fully
And just so you know,
executed.
John, we still can't apply for
Restriction.
3,000 per unit because everything isn't completed on, this is part of the.
When will we be able to apply for that bonus
Bill
density
Brighthelm
payment?
called the other day. He would prefer it be
Who
in.
called, I'm sorry, who called the other day?
Bill Brighthelm from DHCD.
Yeah.
He's been working with Mike O'Shaughnessy on these affordable housing restrictions, which is part of what has to be done. And he would prefer that we apply for it in phases. He called because he didn't know when we can't apply yet because it's not finished. The paperwork part, John.
Yeah.
Because the state has to budget when they're going to pay it out. So I don't think maybe the first project can get I can submit before June 30th.
There was a simple question to the attorney. Is the 3,000 due upon occupancy permit or due
It's building permit.
upon
I
the
know.
building permit? So the building permits have been issued.
But this paperwork has not been completed. There
Right,
is
so
still-
when does he think he's going to do that? I kind of heard some of what you said.
Right.
But when do you think he's going to be done with that? And that's the state.
Yes.
That's nothing to do with us.
Right.
So is that
It's out of our
something-
hands, yeah.
Is that something that gets
I
done?
think this might be the last piece of it.
And so does it get done in a month or is it done in a year? I mean, when's he thinking he's going to do it?
Bill from DHCD?
Yeah.
When everybody else has to sign off on all of these, so that will probably take a couple more weeks.
Okay, no, that's fine.
But it would be, I would like to apply for all of it at once and get one check for the full amount, but.
When you say for the full, you're talking 122 units?
Yeah.
That's a 3-year project. You
Then
do
we
it,
could- then we
you
can
do
do
it
it in
based on what
phases.
you do it phased, based on what he just did.
Yep.
He already pulled the building permits for X number
Phase
of
one,
units.
yeah.
Those are the ones that you apply for, so you get
Yeah.
the $3,000.
So I told him I thought.
I'm not waiting 3 years before
All right.
I apply.
And I told him I would do it when one phase is done, and that's
Right.
how he would like me to do it, is
Right.
when one phase is done.
Right, and so all the things that are being built today,
Yeah,
that's what we should apply for. Okay.
okay.
All right, excellent. So I will entertain a motion to sign the affordable housing restriction agreements for Nemasket River Landing LLC and Riverside Lakeville LLC.
Second that. I'll second that.
All right, I don't even know who made that motion. I think I entertained it. I think Leah made it.
No, actually, I'm not making a motion, not seconding. I'm going to abstain from this vote because I honestly don't really understand a lot of it.
Gotcha. Okay, so I'll make the motion.
yeah.
John
46
seconded.
page of legalese, no one
Yeah,
no one
and you know what, I had
understands
to sneak that
Not even the
surgery
lawyers
in last
understand.
week.
Yeah.
So I didn't have time to catch up on this.
So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Excellent. We have new business. This South Coast Rail program, I got in my email that it's $1 billion for phase 1. And what I find the most interesting is that this is my prediction for what they're going to do with it. Because of course they're trying to find new ways with the Fiscal Control Board of the MBTA to make themselves look like they're actually making money. So they're not issuing any special revenue bonds that are coming from the MBTA. It's being funded by general obligation bonds through the state for the most part. So therefore, they won't have any obligation to use the proceeds of additional ridership on this line to repay the bonds because it's coming from the state level. So everyone's paying for it. And that way they can make it look like it's a well-financed project. So it's moving along, we've heard nothing about it, so we get this through general email, which is fantastic. We'll see what happens with our station.
Or Facebook.
And then the Army Corps has approved it.
Yeah, so we'll just see people like destroying the station. I don't know what they're gonna do with what's
Madam Chair,
happening.
if it makes you feel better, Middleborough
I
hasn't
know
heard
they've got
anything
nothing
either.
to do, right? Yeah. So,
I mean, will we at least get, this is almost like whatever rhetorical question, will we at least get notice when they start having live crossings in town? I mean,
hope they tell us somewhere along the way, but I guess we'll see. Maybe we'll get to ride on the first train from.
I doubt that.
They don't really.
I doubt that.
Okay, any other business? No. Excellent, so I will make a motion to enter into executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to conduct strategy with respect to present litigation. If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the board, the chair so declares, which I declare, and pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, to comply with the open meeting law, Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 22F, approval of executive session meeting minutes for March 25th, 2019 and April 2nd, 2019, and not to return to open session.
So moved.
I made that motion.
Second.
Sorry, I kind of do that. I'm not.
No, that's okay. Hollenbeck?
Aye.
Fabian?
Aye.
Powderly?
Aye.